live now. Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 242. And yes, indeed, I did. I fucked up. I didn't realize that the British clocks had changed last week. So please forgive me. I'll get it right come Wednesday. When we will be doing a Trafalgar stream, by the way, for the anniversary. I'm always happy to do a stream on the great Royal Navy victory of Trafalgar. As always, to give people some time to join us, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your
And that was the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music from someone of our way of thinking, do go and check out Chris Gard's YouTube channel. He's a really good musician, but he's also on the right side of things. So yeah, go and check him out. I'm sorry, guys. As I say, I've completely fucked up the times today. As most people know, I am down under, and I checked the Australian times because we're going to change our time shortly. But I failed to check that the British time changed, I think, last weekend, which is why we're a bit early, actually, rather than late and gay. We're early, so yeah. And my thanks to my guests Mitch and Tharium for joining us early, despite my fuck-ups. We've got some stuff to talk about this week. I mean, just a few things. Obviously, there's the government push to bring in a digital ID. Nearly 3 million people signed a petition against it, and the government just ignored them. But it's
not quite. They did tell us no.
Yeah, they just said fuck you, basically.
Yeah.
That's two-tier care, and the socialists, they've always been that way, and of course the modern so-called Conservative Party is no better. On top of that, we have the Church of England announcing that some woman who has appeared in a hijab is going to be the first female. Yeah, I got a picture of her in a hijab on my X, on my Twitter, where we're also live at the moment, by the way. But this bloody idiot woman is the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. I don't agree with female vicars at all, personally, but and I'm officially Church of England. I got married in a Church of England church, a nice old little village church, and my son was baptized in the same church. Partly because I really liked the vicar. The vicar was a high church guy, so he would have not been supporting this lady who's become the Archbishop of Canterbury at all, because he didn't believe in such things. But he was a former RAF guy, and he used to fly Shackleton maritime patrol aircraft. And for anyone who doesn't know, the Shackleton was kind of the last descendant of the Lancaster. You had the Lancaster and then the Lincoln, and then after the Lincoln you had the Shackleton. And he used to fly those things before he found God. So I thought he was a nice chap. But anyway, so I'm officially Church of England, but I have to say everything the Church of England does these days pushes me away from it. And making a woman Archbishop of Canterbury, and she's obviously the typical liberal lefty type woman. No thank you.
The other day I was looking up some old friends I was trying to remember from primary school. There's one of them, and to my surprise, I thought he'd definitely be a lawyer or in politics or something. Instead, I find he's a vicar in the Church of England. I was not expecting that, and contacted him, and he's pretty pissed off with how the church is, because he seems a lot more old school about it. Like me and him, we always liked our history stuff and things back then. He's not happy.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, the Church of England, and I do agree with this. The Church of England, of course, allows people to become vicars later in life, and after they've had some sort of career. As I said, this Church of England vicar, who I really liked, he was a nice man, was an RAF pilot. And that's fine. And of course, Church of England vicars can also be married, as this guy was. And I think that's quite sensible. My my mother was a Roman Catholic, but she wasn't practicing Roman Catholic. And I think, you know, the idea that if you're a priest, you have to be celibate, I think that is pushing things, and I don't think it's a particularly good idea. I think it kind of invites some of the wrong people to join, if you know.
Yeah.
Which is why there have been certain scandals in the Roman Catholic Church. Over my life, I used to be a full-on atheist. I really was a full-on atheist 15 years ago. I'm now an agnostic, which for anyone who doesn't know basically means I'm a don't know. I don't say there's no God, but I don't know if there is, but there could be. And I if I'm going to be honest, that's probably as far as I'm going to go.
Yep.
I'm in no way, shape, or form anti-Christian, not at all. I am attracted, and I know, like Mitch is a bit too. I am quite attracted to paganism and ancestor worship. I really like Tom Rousel, Survive the Jive. I think he's a good guy with a sensible channel. I don't think I could actually become a pagan myself because it would feel a bit too larpy.
Yeah.
Because I'm a cultural Christian, like we all are these days. But as I said, I'm not anti-Christian at all. But I'm equally happy to listen to sensible pagans like Survive the Jive, who's got an excellent history channel, leaving everything else aside.
That's pretty much exactly the same with me. You know, I used to be a hardcore atheist. Watched all the Richard Dawkins and stuff. Followed all of them.
Oh, and Christopher Hitchens and all that stuff. Yeah, I remember those guys.
Yeah, and then I just sort of I don't know, fell out with it. I mean, it got
boring in the end.
Yeah, they got gay, and it's like, oh yeah, Christian stupid again. Okay, and then there's just like, I don't know. As I got older, there's sort of weird stuff that like the science TM doesn't really have answers for. But again, I don't feel that pull of the Christian church really. So it's I don't know.
I tried. I'll be honest, Tharium, and we'll get Mitch on this in a minute because I know Mitch, in some ways, has the same sort of views as we do. But I did try. I went to all my local churches on a Sunday, and as I say, I'm down under in the state of Victoria, and none of them had more than 3 little old ladies and a cat in them on Sunday. Yeah. You know, and in fact, I've got a Roman Catholic church 10 minutes walk from me, and it's never open on a Sunday. The only time it's ever open is like on a Wednesday, when for some reason there are scores of Chinese people dancing inside it. That's the only time it's ever open. But I've got like 2 or 3 other churches within walking distance of me, and if you go to them for the Sunday morning service, and I have, just out of interest, like I said, none of them have more than 3 little old ladies and a cat in them. It's crazy.
Because there's always the talk about how, it's the church is really on the rise with the young people. But
yes, when Mitch and I were talking about this on the Discord today, and that's what they keep saying, but I just don't see much evidence of it. Not where I am, anyway.
Yeah,
Mitch, what do you think about this stuff? Being a young chap, I think you're even younger than Tharium.
Yeah. Like Tharium's like 10 years older than me. I think. Like I was born in 2001, so I'm 24. So it's, I say in my Discord, I say on Twitter, like, of all the versions of Christianity, I think Orthodox is the only one that really appeals to me. I mean, the Russian Orthodox Church, for example, has Saint Alfred as a saint. It's the only church outside of the Anglosphere that has.
So you mean Alfred the Great, the English king, of course.
Yeah. The canonized. I mean, the Russian Synod had a load of saints, but I mean, Alpha Brigade's the only one I know of. Yeah, and that's. But the problem is we don't have a history of being Orthodox.
Yeah.
I mean, some people will say that because technically, we weren't in communion with Rome before the Norman conquest, which is why the Pope greenlit the Norman invasion.
Yeah.
But as I'm not clued up on religious doctrines and so on, so I don't know too much. But it's like I don't really love the Catholic Church in terms of its hierarchy. I'm not a big fan of the papacy in Rome as a concept, so that's why I don't think I'll ever go Catholic. As for the Church of England, I remember back in the 90s, right, when you had people like Anne Widdecombe and people of that caliber leaving the C of E over women becoming vicars. Some people wanted to go over to the Orthodox Church, and this one Orthodox priest had said, well, if you are leaving the Anglican Church over women becoming vicars, then really she'd never been in the C of E to begin with, because the Elizabethan settlement back in the 16th century, where Queen Elizabeth got herself involved in ecclesiastical matters.
But she was not a vicar, Mitch. And she also said that she didn't want to look into men's hearts to see what they believed.
Yeah, as I'm not that clued up on religion, but I mean, you can because in the Orthodox tradition, it's that there's a distinct separation between secular authority, i.e., kings and governments, versus religious power in the hands of because this is another reason. The thing is, I don't know the Anglican Church doctrine about this, but I know in the Catholic Church, for example, the Pope he's seen as infallible, like he can never be wrong, which I just don't agree with. Whereas
only about some things, though, Mitch. To be fair,
well,
it's got to be something directly involving God, I believe, for him not to be wrong. About other things, he certainly can be.
Yeah. Whereas in the Orthodox Church, you have a patriarch who's elected by a synod, which is a load of bishops who are elected by Kens of Ethan. But the thing is, the patriarchs are first among equals. They're not seen as infallible source of authority. So, let's say, for argument's sake, Patriarch Kirill of Russia. The Russian Orthodox Church is perhaps the only really conservative institution you've got in Russia. Like, they're the main ones banging the drum saying we need to ban abortion, we need to go harder on banning homosexuality and so on. So
all good as far as I'm concerned. I will just say, look, Baldwin II, King of Jerusalem, in chat says, Roman Catholic, the church is in dire straits, but we've survived bad people before. We will survive now. I would just say, Baldwin and other people in the chat, I'm not at all anti-Christian, and I'm certainly not anti-Roman Catholic. I've done streams, for example, with Apostolic Majesty, who's a Roman Catholic. I'm not. My mother was, although she wasn't a practicing one, but she was born that way. Went to a convent school with nuns who she hated because they used to hit her for no great reason.
Everyone always seems to hate the nuns.
Yeah, well, because my mother detested them, but that was because they used to, they'd use the cane and the ruler on these little schoolgirls. And, when I went to school, they were still using the cane and the ruler on me, but I'm a boy, so...
I remember I remember when I was at school, because it was always the female teachers who really loved to use punishment. It wasn't really the male teachers you had to worry about. It was the female teachers who were complete bastards with a punishment.
For boys, yep, I agree with that, because you give them a bit of power and they abuse it. I don't disagree with them. But like I said, I'm not at all anti-Christian. For example, I'm a moderator on 2 channels, I believe, maybe 3 these days, because maybe one of my mates is maybe a moderator. But channels away from this one, I'm a moderator on the Distributist channel. Now, of course, the Distributist is a very well-known American chap who is a Roman Catholic. And actually, I'm trying to organize a stream with him at the moment. I want to do a special stream on the so-called special relationship with an American, and I think Dave, the distributorist, will be the perfect guy to do that with, because he's not infected by a lot of the liberal nonsense in the world. Like, he's a very sensible guy. I'd watch most of his streams. That's kind of why I'm a moderator on his channel. It's just because he comes out with a lot of sensible stuff. I know, for example, that Mitch is not particularly pro-American, but I would suggest, Mitch, that if you want to listen to a sensible American, Dave the Distributorist is a good guy to listen to.
Yeah, the problem, I mean, early Christianity for the English was always its own thing, separate from Rome, really. We've always done our own thing. And then even after the Norman conquest, it was our relationship with Rome was always a bit stretched, and it wasn't great. We've never sort of really gone along with Rome so much. Yeah, there's only been.
But on the other hand, the Third Crusade was pretty damn cool. You know, Richard the Lionheart was pretty successful. He and his English soldiers defeated Saladin repeatedly.
Yeah.
He just didn't quite have enough men to take Jerusalem, sadly. But you know,
there's only been like one English pope. I remember, if I remember correctly, Pope Adrian IV, back in like the 12th century, and like, the only thing he's known for was what's called the Law Debilita, which basically gave us permission to invade the Irish.
Nice.
But you know, whatever. But I would just say. As I said, I'm not at all anti-Christian. I think we're all cultural Christians, like it or not, to be honest with you. But yeah, there are good pagans out there. Like I said, Survive the Jive. Tom Rousel on X and on Twitter and on YouTube, really good historian. Like, leave aside whether he's a pagan or not, he's a damn good historian. I see Bodvar, my friend Bodvar Biaki is in the chat, who's also on my Discord, and I know Bodvar's a pretty strong pagan dude, so yeah. And Bodvar's a nice guy, so you know.
Yeah, I'd say, like, I mean, it's like the Anglo-Saxons, like over 1,000 years ago, like, they have their own sense of Christianity, where so that because I know because one thing about Christianity, which this is one reason I can't consider myself a full-on Christian, is so Christianity preaches forgiveness and not holding hatred in your heart. That can be noble, but I'm not of that persuasion personally when I'm looking at my opposition. So whereas in the Anglo-Saxon one, it was the same, because you have a Northman, which is a good film for like looking at the old Germanic pagan morality, where the worst sin you can commit is to kill members of your own family. That was the same in the Anglo-Saxon world. Even while we were Christian, there was no taboo on exacting vengeance, even though wrath is meant to be one of the 7 deadly sins. But like,
I think I think England is a bit different to a lot of places, because we did have like a Christian influence coming in with the late Roman Empire, and the Romanized Britons. One of the things people get wrong is there were never many actual Romans in Britain. It was more the upper classes in England who adopted Roman ways. So, like, you know, when archaeologists find a Roman villa in England, it's almost always it would have been a villa occupied by relatively well-off British people who had become Romanized rather than actual Romans. There were a few Romans in Britain, of course, you know, but they were mostly people like governors and generals and officers of legionaries and this kind of thing, and auxiliary troops. Whereas it was the people who became Romanized, and the reason you have that bit of France that's called Brittany is because when the Romans withdrew, a lot of these Romanized British people pissed off to
Mhm.
Gaul, as it then was, and moved to Brittany. That's how it gets its name.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Anglo-Saxons came in, and when the Anglo-Saxons first came in, they were very much pagans,
Yeah,
as I'm sure Mitch will tell us.
yeah. Mark Morris's book, like he will detail how because let's say for every 10 prisoners that the Saxons would catch, one of them had to be drowned in the sea as a means of sacrificing to get a good voyage back home. The North Sea was, well, I mean, the North Sea is a hell of a sea to sail now, let alone back in those days in the
Yep.
5th century. So
100%, Mitch. It's one of the roughest seas in the world for sure. It can be.
yeah, so you have Alfred the Great, for example. He would claim descent from Woden in his Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, even though Alfred the Great was a great Christian king who had actually been to Rome himself, he travelled to Rome and met the Pope and everybody. But he's still, as Mitch said, he still claimed being a descendant of Woden, which was the English version of Odin. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I found out was so when you look at how early Christianity spread in the Roman Empire, who were the main spreaders of it? That was like noble women, because basically, because you take for example Julius Caesar, right? I mean, he was married, sure, but he slept around a lot because that was just accepted amongst Roman aristocrats.
Yeah.
But the women, they didn't like this. So when Christianity comes along with its monogamous sense of morality, the Roman women are quick to adopt it because they are seeing Christianity as a means of getting rid of that polygamous instinct among the Roman men.
Of course, the old Saxons, they already had that. They already were monogamous.
Yeah, Tacitus' book is actually more
Yeah.
prevalent to us rather than to the Germans.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Like,
I think it did to some degree depend on how rich and powerful you were, even with the Anglo-Saxons. But you know, Mitch knows way more about the Anglo-Saxons than I do.
Yeah, I always say the modern Germans are clearly a different people, whereas we seem a lot more similar to how we were back then.
I think you know what, even you know, in the height of the Victorian British Empire, which was supposedly very Christian, there were quite a lot of British beliefs that were harking back to the old days, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you, Tharium. I think the English and the British have always been a little bit more true to their ancestors than possibly some of the mainland Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not surprising, really, since they moved to an island. And islands are always more sort of isolated from outside influences.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in say Cromwellian times, a lot of the stuff with like witches and so on, and all this nonsense, they weren't really. They were kind of like most of them were kind of like local wise women who used to do like herbal remedies and stuff like that. And in the countryside, many like pagan beliefs continued into the 18th century, even, you know. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Mitch.
Yeah, I was I know, like, I remember reading Tacitus because he would often remark how Germanic tribesmen, they often lived, they didn't like living sandwiched like sardines next to one another. They like to live with a fair bit of distance. I have a few acres of land in between each house. You go to, for example, Lincolnshire, where, for example, you might have like a little river, and people would purposely build their houses so that the only way to get to their house is by crossing a narrow river. In other words, so before you've even arrived at their house, they know you're coming. That I see that as a very English instinct. In Germany, however, I mean, for example, if you ever go to Berlin or Munich, most people live sandwiched together in like apartments, and it's just very I mean, I don't really complain about it.
Whereas English people have always liked their little house, even if it's a terraced house or a semi-detached house, they like their little house with their little patch of garden, and it's the same in Australia, for example. People want their little house; they don't want to live in a bloody flat or apartment, you know.
No, yeah, and everyone who, well, most people who are stuck like that, their dream is to get out to the countryside. Really, for everyone, every English person.
Or at least, I mean, I don't know about you, Harry, because you're much younger than I am, but like when I was a little boy, the houses I really loved were the 1930s semi-detached houses that were built in the suburbs in Britain, you know, places like Bromley and, you know, which these days, of course, are sadly a bit of a shithole, but back in the day, you used to be a nice green suburb with semi-detached houses with relatively large gardens, you know, and those were the places I always used to look at when I was a little kid. And I lived in a house, but it was a terraced house. My dad bought a 19th century terraced house in the 1960s when you could do that as a working bloke fairly easily, you know. And now you can't. You just can't afford it because they're just so expensive, and it's mostly because of mass world immigration.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all basically that.
Well, I mean, if Britain had a actual British population without mass immigration, Britain would be in pretty much the same position as Japan, where if you move to a rural area in Japan, you can get a house which is almost free. You know, you just got to pay taxes and stuff on it.
I don't know if you heard the news about Japan, where apparently they've elected a woman in charge of their country, but this woman is very very conservative. Like, she wants to restrict immigration. I think she's like tough on the LGBT stuff, and she's basically
Good.
all
good. All good, Mitch.
Yeah, basically, she sees herself. She puts herself as a successor to what's his name, Shinzo Abe. So
I follow I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if he's an Australian or a Kiwi. He's either an Australian or a New Zealand guy, and he lives in Japan, and I think he's got a Japanese girlfriend. And he's called Meme Copium on YouTube, and he's got a couple. He's got a few channels. He's a fairly big YouTube guy, but like the channel I follow just does chit chat about nonsense basically. But he did a stream a little while ago that was pointing out that some of these people, if you follow them on X, on Twitter, who talk about, oh, Japan's gonna have whole cities given over to Africans and stuff. The people that come out with this stuff, they're not Japanese. They're people pretending to be Japanese. And it's nonsense. It's never going to happen, you know, because what Japan does is they'll say to people like the United Nations, oh, yeah, we're going to do this, but they'll never actually do it, which is great as far as I'm concerned. You know, I detest the United Nations myself.
Yeah, it's like, it's like in Japan, right? There are certain places where you can't go, even if you're, let's say, English, where in a country that's very Anglophilic. So I don't see Japan being enthusiastic to have loads of Indians anytime soon.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Man. I don't. Japan is still 98% plus Japanese. If only Britain was like that, you know, if only. And you know what? We're both island offshore nations. So Britain could follow that thing. But that I don't want to carry on with this because that's something I want to talk about in a little bit. That's my subject this week. But it's you don't believe everything you hear about Japanese people, because a lot of it is actually done. And I see Atman's in the chat. Atman, please come and join us. And I'm sorry, fucked up the time this week, mate. But do come and join us. But yeah, a lot of the stuff you hear about Japan on X is not actually posted by Japanese people. It's posted by European people or American people who are pretending to be Japanese.
Or Indians.
Or Indians, of course.
Yeah.
And the Indians pretend to be all sorts
Everything,
of people.
yeah. Yeah.
Good.
The other thing,
Adman's going to join us in a bit. That's good. But yeah, I don't know, guys. As I said, my subject for this week is going to be a bit of that in a bit. I see Parashit Patel is saying he's guilty.
Yeah.
I'm fairly convinced this guy is a false flag guy.
no, he's definitely real. He's definitely an Indian.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's a real Pajit, to be honest. But
if you want weird foreign names, I'll got one for you. I'll get it for you.
Oh, is this? Yeah.
Anya Kachukwu Ife Chukwude Chukwuma. He was a.
Oh, isn't that the Conservative candidate?
Yeah, there were a bunch of like council by-elections back on Thursday, and as one of the candidates who lost to Reform, I think.
Of course he did.
Was that
What's
he
that
or
name?
she? I thought that would have been a she, but
Who knows? Who knows, right?
I don't know. There's no face to it, but we all know it's we're not. All we know is it can't be Igbo because Kemi wouldn't like that.
no. Kemi is there to push forward her particular tribe in Nigeria. But I also hear that apparently she might face a leadership challenge.
Yeah, it's coming up to a year now, I think. Which I think that their rules are you've got a year, I think.
Yeah.
And so after that, yeah. Because I mean, it hasn't exactly gone well for them, has it?
Oh, look, Kemi's a Nigerian. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's a perfectly nice girl, but she's a Nigerian. She ain't British.
Well, I mean, she's got a very special work ethic, and she's got a very special tribal Yoruba nationalism.
Look, time doesn't exist until Kemi makes it. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
About
how Africans don't see time?
No, of course not. Well, they haven't done anything ever, so why would they?
Yeah.
And guys, I lived in Africa for 15 years, and I'm actually quite fond of some Africans. I think the Zulus are nice people for the most part, providing they don't all lose their temper at once about something. But I've got Zulus who I would absolutely describe as friends. But Africa's contribution to the world is basically zero.
Yeah.
Unless you're into mud huts.
They made some tools out of bone. Yeah.
Yeah, at the same time that everybody else did. Yep.
Yeah.
No wheel. No wheel.
Well, they did use tires as necklaces back in the 80s. So
yeah,
that's true, but that
fashion
was a Western invention they were using, and also I don't think the Africans on their own would have found the petrol to put in the tires, which is what they used to do. They fill them full of petrol and kill black people with them. Strange to say. Sometimes women or kids even. Particularly Winnie Mandela, like her husband, Nelson Mandela, was a self-admitted terrorist who planted bombs all over South Africa and mostly killed women and children, and many of them were black. And Nelson Mandela admitted this, but of course the left still think he's some sort of saint. But Winnie Mandela, who used to have a thing called the Winnie Mandela Football Club, because black guys like football, English style football. They used to murder anyone who did anything. that Winnie didn't like, and one of the people they murdered was a bloke called not a bloke, a boy called Stompy McKenzie. Go look him up if you want to. A Stompy, by the way, in South Africa is like a dog end, a fag end. And she had this. I think he was 13, and she had him murdered. Black guy. She just had him murdered.
I'd say one book. I mean, I was reading a book about Stasi, which there's a section of it where it says about Stasi helping Nelson Mandela and his mates and me. How do you say it? How is it pronounced? Conto a Sizwell or something like that.
Yeah, spear of the nation, supposedly the cowardly bastards. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say like if you're wanting to it's by a guy German American journalist by the name of John O'Curler about with a Stasi from 1999 if I remember correctly. So if anyone wants to look up ANC terrorism, that book could be a good start in terms of like the communist links to it. I'm trying to think now.
In the 1930s, Mitch, while you're thinking, in the 1930s, when many small hat people wanted to escape Europe, and particularly like Central Europe, because of Moustache Man and what have you, the white South African government took in very large numbers of small hat Jewish refugees. And in the 1960s and 70s, one of the main brains behind the terrorists' African National Congress, which was absolutely a terrorist organization, Nelson Mandela himself admitted it was a guy, Joe Slogo, who was a Jewish person who came into South Africa as a child, escaping Moustache Man, because the horrible, vile white South Africans allowed the Jewish guys to move there. And he repaid them by organizing the terrorist campaigns of the ANC that mostly killed black people, by the way.
Yeah, I think the other thing was another guy, because I posted about this in the Discord, where a guy called Ronald Casrild, a Lithuanian Jewish fella, who was a direct link between Nelson Mandela, ANC, and the Stasi in East Germany. And the thing was, that guy, well, that was actually he was a minister for defence in the 90s.
Mitch, when I served in the SADF in South Africa, in the South African Defence Force, under the white government, in Southwest Africa, which is what we used to call the operational area, we killed East German officers who were working with SWAPO, which was the terrorist organization in Southwest Africa. We killed East Germans. We actually killed at least one Russian, but we killed a number of East Germans because they were commies, you understand?
Yeah.
But AI. Good evening, sir. How are you going? I'm sorry I messed up the time today. AI. It's totally my fault.
Now, so I panicked briefly. I thought, oh no, have I was sort of listening to some music, some synthwave music, and I was totally like oblivious of the time. And I looked and I realized, saw a notification on Twitter, and I thought, oh no, I'm having this sandwich, and I completely miss. Yeah, completely missed the start.
AI, in a way, it's a good thing because it gives us we can just digress for like the first hour, but that's me making an excuse. So sorry.
No. So I have been listening for the last few minutes. One thing I can contribute to this discussion was when I was probably about 15. The school took us on. We had I don't know if Mitch and Sarah were probably the same age as me, but we had like a special dedicated part of our I don't know if it was like history or social studies or whatever you call it now, but it was like Holocaust memorial sort of thing. Remembering the Holocaust, teaching us about the Holocaust and all that sort of stuff. And I remember going to a event set up, and it was a bit strange because it was sort of sold to us. Oh, it was like a veterans of World War II, and then actually no, it was like Holocaust. And it was at like a nearby. It was a local football club that was hosting it. So, and there was no. It was empty, but it was just like the whole center was used as like a conference hall. I remember there was one chap there who was said to be a Holocaust survivor, though given at the time he would have been in his 60s. I remember this like 20 odd years ago. So I'm even then it was like the math is not. I think anyway. That's not the point. The point is
hang on, AI. One of the things that always amazes me is that even to this day in 2025, we keep getting told someone is a Holocaust survivor. And I'm sorry, I don't know how you could be now.
Well, your grandmother survived it, so therefore you.
Yeah, which doesn't mean you are. It means your grandmother was. Yeah.
I mean, this was back in 2009, 2010. I would say 2009. So, yeah, even thinking back, he would have what? Yeah, it wouldn't have added up. Or if it was, he wouldn't have remembered it. He would have been too young to remember. It in any sort of lengthy detail. But my point is, minus all that, is he then spent most of his youth. He was living in comes from the UK. I mean, he had like an English accent, so but he was obviously part of that tribe, that community, and he was a known advocate locally to boycotting South African and Rhodesian goods, through particularly South African goods, through the 60s, 70s, 80s into the early 90s.
I tell you what, I remember in 1985 when I was moving to South Africa, I had to go to South Africa House, which is the South African embassy, and it's on Trafalgar Square, as you guys may know. Very grand old building, because like South Africa, Canada, Australia all have nice big buildings in London for obvious reasons. And I remember in 1985 there was all these anti-apartheid protesters outside, and they wanted you to sign their petition against apartheid. And I did indeed sign it, and I just wrote Mickey Mouse. Before I went in there. But that's what I did. I just wrote Mickey Mouse.
You could have put something like Cecil Rhodes or something like that. You could have put
that would have been funny too. But there's a different topic that we'll have to come to at some point, because we're going to do a history stream on Cecil Rhodes AI, which I know you want to do. And that's one place where I suspect that if you want really good South African people, go check out people like Conscious Caracal, great South African YouTuber, and a very good advocate for his people. But I suspect me and him won't agree on Cecil Rhodes. But anyway, maybe not. We'll see.
I've been Cecil Rhodes LARPing a bit over the last couple of days. I've been wanting. There's like a few British space companies that I've I mean, I say they're basically on the stock market, like penny stock sort of stuff. But I've sort of been LARPing. I put in a couple pounds, and I'm just sort of putting on the comments of of that. Like, when I look at Mars, I want to paint all the whole stretches of the galaxy red, white, and blue, and all that. So I've sort of been like laughing at Cecil Rhodes in my mind. But yeah.
Yep. Mars should be part of the British Empire. I agree. But yeah, Richard Phillips in the chat said, I got to watch Zulu Dawn at school. The younger generation got to appreciate Holocaust Memorial Day. Zulu Dawn was a terrible fucking film, man, honestly. And I knew some of the people who helped make it in South Africa. But yeah, it was an awful film. Not realistic. Look at the British infantry in that movie, and you'll find they've all got cavalry carbines, which are little tiny short rifles. And they can't fix a bayonet to them. It's bloody horrible. I hate that film so much.
The two films we watched at school, which was Master and Commander, which is based, and it was excellent.
Great film.
Great film, and that was down to our English teacher, who was very much low key based and into his naval history. But the other one, which I absolutely hated, and I don't know what the other you think, but which was that Mel Gibson one, Apocalypto. I was really disappointed with that.
I didn't actually hate that. I thought that was okay, actually.
Well, I hated it because in my mind, I knew nothing about it apart from it being, like Aztec, Central American. I actually thought that the Spanish would turn up and we'd be like watching it from this like Spanish perspective. So I set myself up with like completely disappointment. And then of course when you have the ending when they're on the beach and you look at and you see the Spanish arrival, I was like, oh, now it's getting started, and suddenly that was in, and I was like, what?
No, I kind of thought that was based actually.
Yeah. I mean,
because
it did.
The Aztecs were fucking nasty
monsters. It didn't shy away from that.
Which indeed they were, and it didn't say anything about the Spanish.
I mean,
it just said they'd arrived.
Afterwards, we had to write. I remember we had our teacher. He asked us to write what do you think the next thing would happen? And I said, well, historically speaking, if they had been captured by the Aztec and they escaped, they probably would have greeted the Spanish. Spanish probably would have, they would have been fairly friendly because, contrary to popular opinion, contrary to popular opinion, they were very friendly with the natives. There wasn't they weren't like these bloodthirsty like the Mongol like Mongols or something like that. They the only times that they would be hostile would be if they saw you perform child sacrifice, human sacrifice, or if they one famous occasion when they tried to they invited some local one of the local tribal villagers invited the Spanish to come and to this party, and they were serving up this suspicious meat which they realized was human flesh, and so that obviously you can imagine that didn't go down well with the with Cortez and his people, but I
would say look what the Spanish and even more the Portuguese were known for in their colonies was they would do race mixing stuff. Where South Africa and
I don't approve of
that. Mate, I'm not saying a word. All right, let me finish. Where South Africa and Rhodesia were a bit different is they didn't. And given I don't like foul skulls, I totally agree with that. So,
I remember we had to cover this in university one time where they said, so in the colony of Virginia, they passed a law back in 1690, I think it was, that basically forbade all racial mixing between the whites and the natives.
Yeah, but on the other hand, Mitch, you've got to say there was Pocahontas. So
yeah,
whatever.
But that was before the law. So, but yeah,
I mean,
and there was, and Mitch, there was also the girl in. I actually like that movie. I think it's not bad. Dances with Wolves. There was the girl in Dances with Wolves. She was not ugly, so There's
I
that.
would just say to AIM, there's a Mexican TV series about Hernan Cortez. I've heard is pretty crap, apparently, because for once,
Yeah.
I've heard, like, because for example, if I have like the Spanish on the ship for some reason, even though there wouldn't have been any women. But one thing they have is this Spanish woman gets a heart whipped by the Aztecs, and then the Spanish got into
Mitch,
a mission afterwards.
you do know, don't you, that if you're Spain and you're going to conquer America,
Yes, Duke, I know.
you're absolutely, you're going to put
That's why I
goals.
caveated it.
Yeah,
That's why I caveated
you're
it.
going to put so many goals on those ships because nothing will conquer America quicker than goals, who will faint if it's too hot.
Mitch, I'm Duke. I heard of that series, and basically what it is Mexican anti-Spanish, anti-colonialist propaganda. I mean, it's just straight up like. I remember a couple years ago on Steam, there was an announcement of like this third-person game where you could either be the a
Yes,
a,
yeah,
a,
you
a,
could be
Me-
either one.
a Mexican native or a Spanish one, and in the Mexican native one, like, bear in mind, you're not an Aztec, you're just like you're like from a random village, you know, on the border with the Aztec Empire, and it's like there's the thing like, oh, but you side with the Aztecs during the Cortez's arrival, and you had like floods of comments of people, even like Mexicans, that said, listen, there were more natives on the Spanish side than there were on the Aztec side. The Aztecs were famously known for having literally no allies because they would basically just subjugate, and they would use their neighbors, their surrounding neighbors. They would perform human sacrifice. A lot of the other tribes, like the Texacanas and things like that, they didn't do human sacrifice. I mean, it happened in more primitive circles, sure, but there were a lot of the tribes that didn't perform that. And the Aztecs did, and well, they got the Carthaginian treatment in some ways. There's when you look at Carthage and what Rome did to Carthage and what the Spanish did to the Aztecs, there is a few similarities. And there's one book I got on there. There's a really good one by a Spanish author who does draw that conclusion. You know, that there is something within a society where they're killing the cream of the cream of their stock, the cream of youth, that is obsessed with death. In that regard, those societies just draw the ire of the world, and the world will want to destroy them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoy the I did enjoy. I think it's like it's not Burt Lancaster. There's one that's about the conquest of the Incas, which I can't remember. Is it not Royal Hunt? I can't remember the name of it now, but that's a good film.
I think you're thinking of The Hunt of the Sun.
The Hunt of the Sun. That's the one. Thank you.
That sounds the one. But
Yeah.
like every Hollywood film has always been lefty liberal. Always.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all of it's a bit dodgy. Even documentaries. I remember there was one documentary that had like accurate clothing, accurate counts. You know, the burning of the ships, accurate stuff. But it was still coded as, you know, evil white conquerors that just slaughtered the Aztec population for no reason, like no reason at all. You know, suddenly one day they were cool and friends and they were partying with each other. Next day it was like everyone must die, tear this whole city to the ground. You know.
Oh look, you can look at really good right wing actors, like for example Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston was a right wing guy. And a good bloke, and actually, I think a pretty good actor. But you can watch some of his films. You can watch 55 Days in Peking, Khartoum, where he plays General Gordon, who he plays pretty well, although he's much taller than the real Charlie Gordon. El Cid and all these sorts of movies. But even his films are kind of, they try and twist them to be anti-Western. They just do.
Well, even Ben
and that
Hur,
wasn't that was not Charlton Heston, who was actually a genuine right-wing guy who said they'll take the rifle out of my cold dead hands. You know?
well, even Ben Hur there is some aspects of Ben Hur you could actually argue is anti-Western, and even maybe in some Christians have argued this. I've seen it online. There's actually quite anti-Christian because it treats some of like the even though Jesus isn't actually physically shown, or he's shown like with his back to the camera sort of thing. There is like this idea that it's treated as he's sort of like an afterthought in this, and he acts more as like just a plain prophet figure now. So, and from a Christian perspective, that would be downplaying it, for example, or something like that. So, even like with Ben Hur, there's actually quite strong Zionist influence on it. But
yeah, for sure, of course, because it's Hollywood, which there was one. There's a really good documentary you can find, I think, on YouTube, or you used to be able to find it on YouTube, called something like a Kingdom of Their Own, which is how Jewish people ran Hollywood. But I mean, another good Charlton Heston movie is The Warlord, for example. It's a great film. 1950s, I think, or early 1960s. But it's actually a really good movie. And Charlton
is that
Heston,
the Norman? Is that the where he's a Norman knight?
Yeah, he is.
I've seen that one. It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's given a tower that he has to defend. Yeah. Charlton Heston was a good guy, and was in some excellent movies. But as you rightly say, AI, even his movies were subverted. They just were. Lynn Stefan 180, who is going to get banned from me in a minute. If you continue this, mate, you'll get banned. UK is not going to become Muslim, and no Irish Americans are going to do that. I suspect I know who you are now. So you carry that on, mate, and I'll just ban you, all right? And by the way, I've got nothing particularly against Irish Americans, but I will ban if you carry that on.
I do. Listen, the Irish Americans aren't going to do anything, the Irish American men, because they're all too traumatized from being raped by their local priest.
Could be.
Yeah, so
but yeah,
as someone might say, you can't really believe too much in the Irish because we can be an island and we don't know how to fish when we run out of potato.
Yeah, but they're not real seamen, for God's sake. I mean, this is why you get that song about the Irish guy who like can't sail for some reason. But yeah, but anyway, leaving that aside, and I'm not anti-Irish people. I'm not. Like I said, my mother was half Irish. But you know what? I think if someone asks me, I'm an Englishman because that's what my dad was. And I admired my dad. He had his faults, but he was my dad. And all young boys, I thought he was Superman when I was a little boy.
Oh, I should do one of those genetic tests to see like if there's any, like the percentage of like how much are like English, Scots, Irish sort of stuff, or God forbid any other group in there. What sort of makeup? Because that would be quite interesting. There's the one that Survivor Drive recommends. That's apparently quite accurate.
I think that's living DNA.
Just always remember when you do that, AI, you are helping the government produce their digital ID.
Yeah, this is why I haven't done them. I
Yeah.
just don't trust these companies.
Yeah, that's why I won't do them either. You do that, it all goes to the cops, it all goes to the feds.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about Palantir, which apparently they've got Oswald Mosley's grandson working for them, of all people, in my UK division. Palantir came out saying we're not going to help the government with the digital ID stuff, saying, well, no one
But
votes
would
for
you?
it.
Well,
I
that's
did
fine.
see that. Yeah, I did see that, Mitch. But you know what? If you do your DNA stuff, right, that is definitely going to the authorities, and they can demand it even if the company doesn't want to give it to them.
I mean,
and
plus, it's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine if Palantir don't do it, because Oracle are more than happy to, with Larry Ellison.
Exactly.
And can you guess what tribe Larry Ellison belongs to?
No. I bet he wears a small hat on Sunday.
Yeah, he's got a secret one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will say, by the way, a video I would suggest people watch was an AI video a couple of weeks ago. An AI convinced me, and I don't absolutely believe in everything AI does. I mean, I'm quite happy to be friends with people who are not totally agreeing with me. But AI did a response video to Connor Tomlinson going to Israel. And AI, by the end of that video, had actually convinced me that Connor Tomlinson was a Zionist shill. So there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically wanting to go on, if Connor Tomlinson, for example, was on a prime minister or at least an MP, you'd imagine he'd be in someone like Reform, be massively shilling the NATO and all the Israel crap. Like he would just try and package it in terms of counter jihad.
He had a post on X, I think, today, in which he was going on about Yom Kippur. Now, I tell you, anytime anyone who is supposedly like a British person goes on about Yom Kippur, I'm going, how do you even know when that is? Because I certainly don't.
I'm going to be honest with you. I know. I mean, I know roughly what it is, because obviously I'm into world religions and that sort of stuff. So I know roughly what it is, but I couldn't tell you like the actual date, or maybe I couldn't. If you were to ask me, like, explain it to me, I wouldn't be comfortable, because I know I would get it wrong, and there'd be some smart Alex out there somewhere that's saying, "Oh, actually, AI, you got this bit wrong. It's actually something like that." So I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. I mean, the only thing when I think of Yom Kippur, I always think it was the Yom Kippur War. That's what sort of comes to my mind, to be honest.
Me too. Me too. AI.
But what I will say about
if you said to me when it was, I wouldn't have a fucking clue of it. Because I'm not Jewish, and I don't come from Israel.
What I will say about Connor Tomlinson, though, is he's one of, if you were to look at a lot of the Zionist right wing grifting type that he belongs to, that sort of sect, he's probably one of the most intelligent of them by far. He's a very intelligent, he's a very cunning figure. He's like he's a wily fox character, because he's self-conscious and he's self-aware. He knows that his former bosses at the Lotus Eaters, he knows the circle of the right online people like Morgoth and everything like that. He knows that those people do not care, or even at this point are quite hostile towards Israel.
Yeah.
He knows that a lot of the people on the right are hostile, and they're hostile for one reason. Now, one reason he can point out is basically Israel gets to do national stuff and we don't. That's one of the areas they go. And he is right in some regards. There are people on the right who don't like that Schmittian exception that Israel gets to do what they want and we don't. and then we have to be browbeated by anti-European guilt for World War II or some crap like that.
AI, RAF fighter jets from Cyprus shooting down Iranian drones aimed at Israel. Why? As far as I know, Israel was not really a British ally.
Well, again, and this is the point. So, but overall, people are sick because of their entitlement. Because also, as I mentioned on live stream, that you have Israelis who are liberal, who operate and have organizations which liberal networks in Europe and the West in America that basically do stuff to flood the respective countries with people from Africa and Asia. And then also you have figures in the conservative movement to counteract that on the continent who pose as right wing, but then are massively in favor of Zionism. And so it's kind of like we're living in this.
Hang on a minute, AI. Kev Buckley, if you call one of my guests a CUNT again, you'll be banned. All right?
I think he means it as a compliment.
Yeah, probably, but even so, just don't do it. All right. We even get a few women watching this, by the way, so just don't do it. Sorry, AI. Carry
on. Yeah. So anyway, that's basically one of the problems that we have, today. And also, and I know we were probably going to bring up what the news story, but of course you had in Britain that attack on the synagogue in
we
Manchester.
are certainly going to bring that up
and,
soon.
As we condemn all violence on this showing and everything.
Yeah, look,
and
nobody wants any innocent person killed. All right, I'm sorry. I don't care what religion you are. If you're an innocent person, I don't want you killed. All right, I am totally against that. But you know what? In this incident, AI, you had the British police turned up within 7 minutes. Right? When the 3 tiny little toddler girls were killed at Southport, no British armed police turned up within 7 minutes. Funny that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, this is my.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
No British armed police turned up within 7 minutes because 3 little British toddler girls were not a priority while a synagogue was. Okay? And then we hear the British police probably killed at least one of the Jewish people there and may have wounded another. But then again, it's a standard operating procedure. The Muslim terrorist, as usual, had a fake explosive thing on him. And I reckon it's a standard operating procedure that if they have some sort of bomb on them, you just kill them, because obviously it's better to do that than they let the bomb off and kill 20 people, So I don't criticize the police for that, and I'm no great fan of the modern British police at all. But, it's probably just standard operating procedure.
One of the most disgusting things, though, from all of this, is leaving the crime aside and looking at the sort of hyper reality of this, of people commentating online here. You have people on the right, quote unquote, right of British politics, who have debased themselves. And there's been a few. There's one notable one where they were saying, this is like, Britain is a cesspit of anti-Semitism. Britain has a long history, a dark history of anti-Semitism. And it's like, I've had to use all my will. I've had to use all my willpower not to reply to a lot of these, but it's basically like, okay, listen here, you stupid dumb bitch. Listen here for a minute. First of all, this guy who did this didn't do it in the name of debasing the currency, as a massive supporter of Edward Longshanks. They didn't do that.
No.
He didn't do this attack in the revenge of the King David Hotel bombing. He didn't do it for that. All the soldiers who were executed, with chicken wire and
The
everything.
sergeants
The officers,
who
yeah.
the Jewish terrorists hanged in 1947. Yeah, they were lovely pro-British guys.
Yeah, he's a Syrian. He's not a British. I don't care. He's a British. No, fuck him. He's a Syrian. He's a Syrian.
His name was Jihad, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
his full name translates to jihadi from Syria. That's what his last name is, from Syria. So his name is literally just jihadi from Syria.
Jihadi from Syria.
Yeah.
But hang on, AI. I've got to stop you just right there. The Labour Party and two-tier Keir Starmer have just spent the last 5 or 6 days telling us that every single person who is given a paper British passport is as British as you and I, even if we can trace ourselves back to Alfred the Great's time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, apparently we're also not British because we don't believe in his renewal, Britain's renewal. We are no longer British.
We're enemies of the state.
Yeah, when he was like, he might as well have said on stage, those people who on the panel of Splendid Isolation, you are now enemies.
Yep. I find that really scary. I'm going to say I'm not an Englishman anymore because Sir Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, is the real Englishman. The gay guy who pretends to be married, the guy who absolutely detests anyone who is Anglo-Catholic. Yeah, I'm going to change my mind.
I mean, personally, and this is like the message that maybe I was spread out and you guys should spread out still. These fuckers, right, at the Labour Party conference and the Greens and all the other dipshits on the left, spent the last 5 years, particularly 5 years ago, overthrowing and tearing down statues of our great ancestors of this country. People who built this country, who built up the empire, who made this country prosperous, who are heroes, who are real English people, real Scots, real Welsh and Irish and what have you. Real British people at the heart. And these people tore these monuments to them and names to them down. And so Starmer and his followers and the Labour Party and the left and the establishment left, who now want to co-opt. They are traitors. They are traitors, and they are we're not. The right should not allow them to dictate who is now a British person, because quite frankly, one of the things, and this is something that I see it with the foreign groups in particular, one of the core principles of any society is a form of ancestral worship, and that goes back. I mean, that's a core value. That's a core aspect, I should say, of paganism. In all pagan, because everyone's groups, everyone in the history of the world, their group was pagan at one point, and ancestral worship is that a core part of it. So everything that Starmer and the Labour Party and the establishment and the British state as a whole have done, and I'll include the Tories and all the others dipshits like that in. They have created. It's such a fake society. It's such a fake reality that it cannot even. It won't be able to stand up to the test of time.
No. Well, it's already collapsing. I mean, Starmer's the least popular.
It is. Baron, forgive me for interrupting you, but we started way early because I'm a fuck up. And I just want to say hello to Atom and my good friend. How you going, Adam?
Yeah, good. You? Everyone else?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Look, guys, we started an hour early because I'm an idiot. Forgive me. I was a squaddy in the army, all right? So what can you say? But yeah, Let's start making this conversation a little bit more organized. I'm going to ask Alman, did you have a first subject for today?
No, it is. I mean, the news of the week is just the second shower on British now on British soil.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I totally agree with you, mate. And it's equally ridiculous. And you know,
I will.
look,
I mean, I can't believe I'm actually going to come out in defense of Jews now. I will say that there's been a lot of people in our circles who, for months and months and months, like there was someone in particular I remember, quite a prominent figure. I'm not going to name any of these people, but they were like, "Oh, you know, when the Palestine protests happened, you know, the kid gloves that the police used to treat other movements with came off." And I was kind of sitting there thinking, are we watching like different things?
yeah, we
But of
must
course,
be, because the British police were much more violent to people with Union Jacks than Palestine players.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not that they don't care about this group. Like you've had, like, what was it, Dan Hodges from the Daily Mail and all that running around screaming. They obviously do. They care deeply, but it does kind of seem like the Jews now have just become just another of many client groups of the British state. Not particularly the top one. I mean, they probably still hold a little bit of a special place just because they've got.
Can I ask you, Armin, do you think there's much chance that any social media posts from British Jewish people will land them in jail?
Well, this is the thing. So the father of the guy who did that attack has apparently made some, you know, what I suppose some
Yeah, I
people
saw
that
that.
were,
I saw that.
would consider to be quite abrasive comments about that. You know, he has a fairly prominent, you know, he's a doctor, I believe.
I
he's a
named my
professional.
kid Jihad because I wanted him to be peaceful. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, he didn't face any repercussions for that comment in his profession, you know, let alone from the authorities. So, I mean, this has kind of been a long running problem with intersectionalism. I mean, if you remember back to, like, there was a few years ago that I remember there being an incident where, like, Louis Farrakhan referred to them as termites or something.
Someone's made a good point in the chat. Someone said, "There's no look back in anger. Don't look back in anger about this." Funny that, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
because
and
the thing is, because some people were. Oh, sorry, go on, Mitch.
I was gonna say, I noticed like some Jewish women on Twitter, they were going, "Oh, well, we saw, so how come no one's caring about the Jews and all that?" And it's like, well, this same Jewish woman, by the way, a month ago, she was posting about how it's bad to criticize the migrants if imported and all this.
I'll give you another example, guys, and I have to say Morgoth pointed this out to me, or I might not have seen it. You get the likes of Julia Hartley Brewer, right, who barely say a word about tens of thousands of young English girls as young as 11 being gang raped and tortured and like insulted and all sorts of things. Barely say a word about that, but she goes on about this attack, saying, "What can we do as non-Jewish people to try and save the Jewish people?" I actually said in her thread on that, how about you look at some of the working class white girls, Julia? You know?
Yeah, I saw Alison Pearson going, "First I came for the Jews," and that's why I've stayed off Twitter for a large part of today.
Yeah,
go look at what's her name, Mitch. You'll know, Sammy, whatever her name
Sammy
is.
Woodhouse.
I can't remember. Yeah, go check her out. For first, they came for the Jews. No, they didn't. They first came for working class English white girls who they called white sluts.
I mean, you had Keir Starmer's response was, okay, so he's already done extra protection for all the mosques. They've got to be safe. And now it's like, oh, crap. Now we need extra protection for the synagogues. It's like, can do we ever get extra protection? The actual English people.
One of the things that I pointed out, gents, was that, you know, when those 3 little English girls were killed at Southport, the police did not arrive within 7 minutes with an armed response unit. They just didn't.
No, I have been hearing.
Funny that, isn't it?
I've been hearing of like little villages and stuff, sort of forming their own like neighborhood watch alliances, sort of thing.
Good.
To sort of keep an eye on any sort of newcomers, shall we say? Because who else is going to do it?
Bournemouth has done that.
Look, I will point out, because we're on YouTube as well as X. I will, and X has more free speech than YouTube does, because Elon Musk is a better guy than the Indian or whoever he is on YouTube. But I will just point out, I don't support the killing of any innocent people, and in particular any innocent women and children at all, by anybody. I'm totally against that, and I really am. One of the reasons I joined the military was kind of to protect women and children, and I wasn't especially bothered about their race or religion. But you know what? These days, if you're an English person, as I am, and as everyone on this stream is, an English or a British person, you have to say there's no protection for English or British people at all.
Yeah, it's like
you all saw that little Scottish girl who had to carry a knife and an axe, trying to defend her sister, and everyone slagged her off. Like, some 13-year-old little girl can really be in the wrong.
Oh, you had this awful American leftist who said, "Oh, by the way, he's like a Bulgarian Christian," and it's like, cool, he can be a Bulgarian fucking Orthodox Christian back in Bulgaria, for all I give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly, yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah, and the thing was, so that, you know, and you get a lot of the people who are going up there, we Jews are feeling threatened. I say, you have, for example, a Tory party, you got Kemi Badenoch, you got Robert Jenrick, who, I think Jenrick, last year he said he wanted to have Stars of David put up at immigration checkpoints.
It looked like Nigel Farage, another one. Which British politician is not pro-Zionist and Israel? Show me them. I wish I could see them.
Jeremy Corbyn. That's all you got, really.
Case. Special case, but the thing is, you have I think Morgoth just pretty much have the best takes on these people, because you got another one which annoyed me, but I muted it a long time ago, was Bella Wallersteiner, blonde Jewish bird who she was all for mass immigration, all for the social liberalism, all that kind of crap, until October 7th. And then she starts talking about immigration after Hamas marches all over London.
Many cases. There's an actor who there was an American actor who was he's a Jewish fellow, and he was like hated. What was it? He hated the right wing in America. He hated like the whole Christian nationalist stuff. Remember that from a few years ago? And then suddenly, after October 7th, he did the biggest 180 U-turn, and then started budding up to them when Trump was looking to win. And of course, Trump is a big fan of Israel and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's not. There's many cases of that happening.
Yeah, and the media response, the initial media response, was so damn predictable. Because at first they even had the nerve to say it was a mosque that was attacked, and you know how excited they must have been at that thought. Oh, some evil white person has attacked a precious mosque, and they were getting ready to just have us on our knees begging for forgiveness. And it's, oh crap, it's a synagogue. Well, and then they still talk about the far right. No, Jews are scared of the far right. Okay, because even the people on the far right, like us, who do have more of a problem with the Jews, I don't see any of them actually going and doing anything about it.
I mean, talk for yourself. I'm a centrist. I'm a centrist. Nietzschean. I don't.
I'm not far. I'm not far right.
No, I
sorry,
didn't
I'm
mean
not.
I didn't
I
I
am.
didn't mean us. Well, I shouldn't have said us, but just the people who do like the white people who do have real
I'm a
Jew
British
problem.
nationalist, and last time
Yeah.
I looked, Tharium,
Yeah.
Britain lost hundreds of thousands dead in World War II fighting against Germany. I'm sorry, I seem to remember this. They kind of like bombed London and Coventry and and they could never invade, of course, because we already sunk their navy. But yeah, we kind of fought against the Germans. I seem to remember.
Sure,
this.
but Nazi now is as much of a slur as it was then. Like, it just means people that don't align with the sort of like race communist narrative.
Not a lefty liberal.
Like generally, like the thing is, I always say to these people, if they say far right, I say, well, how are you defining far right? And the funny thing is, they will either desperately dodge the question, playing hatchling, trying to get away from it as much as possible, or they will actually admit that the left-right distinction has nothing to do with like the popular position.
Well, in their mind, if you are a conservative or you have an inch of traditional values, you should just join the Tory party, be a good little Tory boy, talk about economics issues, social issues. No, just be like Rees-Mogg, fuck it, out the window. Talk and if you ever dare to actually want your side to have genuine political power, or even talk about such taboo topics, then far right Nazis whenever the right wing decides to try a bit of vanguardism. That's one thing I've learned over the last few years.
I totally agree with AI, but I would just look at your avatar, which is an RAF Spitfire pilot getting a haircut.
Yeah, but he'd be called far right as well. He would have been called far right then as well.
He would have been far right. All of those guys, almost all of those guys who fought in World War II for Britain would today be described as far right. And the left will pretend, they were fighting against fascism. No, they weren't. They were just fighting for Britain and the Empire. That's what they were doing.
If you ask that guy in Asperman's profile picture, would you sacrifice the empire to defeat Germany? I imagine, and along with the majority of
he would have said not a fucking chance.
He would. Well, the first one was, "What the fuck are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" And then the following thing would have been, "No, that's ridiculous."
They did a poll of American soldiers alongside 90% not wanting desegregation. It was something like, I can't remember if it was like a third or 2/3, but it was something like at least a third of American soldiers were like, they think Hitler was right about the Jewish question.
I mean, it's a bit like today. Like, is there one single soldier who served in Afghanistan who would have told you, "Well, I just really care about women's rights and democracy for Afghanistan"? Yeah,
I don't think
this isn't why they fight.
You might have found a few over promoted women.
Yeah, there's the generals who will speak the line.
I'm certain, Tharium, that Kipling was deeply concerned with women's rights in Afghanistan. I know it to be true.
Yeah,
you have to read between the lines.
But Kipling was an Indian nationalist. All right, he didn't think that India was better run by the British.
I did actually meet a Royal Marine officer some years ago who did actually say to me, he goes, I don't fight for, I mean, he really did desperately wanted to say Gannons. I don't fight for people on the council estates. Yeah. But
Oh,
I fight for bringing real change to people out in the world, like the people of Afghanistan.
Ah,
that's surprising, especially in the Royal
Well,
Marines.
I've
Yeah.
got to tell you guys, this is like, I reckon this is pretty important. I used to know Ewan Silverby Taylor, and if you don't know who Ewan Silverby Taylor was, he was a Royal Marine, and he'd been in charge of the British Royal Marine garrison of the Falkland Islands twice, I think. But he was also, Ewan was also a big time yachtsman. He had a beautiful boat. And when the Falklands War broke out in 1982, the Royal Marines, who were the main guys doing the landings, because that's what the Royal Marines do, surprisingly, they're like the elite sea soldiers of the Royal Navy. They went to Ewan and they said, Ewan, where can we land? Because he sailed his yacht all around the Falklands. And so where the British landing happened was largely down to Ewan. And during the war itself, I think he was a major at the time, if I remember correctly. But he ended up a lieutenant colonel, I think. But Ewan was also in charge of all of the Royal Navy landing craft that the Marines and everybody else used during the war. And he had some interesting things to say about Bluff Cove, for example. You can read his book, which is called Reasons in Writing, which is a Royal Marines thing. If a Royal Marine officer does something controversial, he has to give to his superior officers his reasons in writing. And so that's why Ewan's book is called that. And Ewan was a very, very old-fashioned man. Like, if you were aboard his yacht, and I was lucky enough to be aboard his yacht a couple of times, you could not go ashore from Ewan's yacht without having a collar and tie on. That was an insistence by the skipper of the yacht, which was Ewan. But yeah, I don't think Ewan would have agreed with that bloke at all. Like, Ewan was a totally British nationalist. Like a really old-fashioned, very, very, very brave British man.
I have heard that Sandhurst and a lot of the officers have been, over the last decade or so, have been very much like POSed. I guess the word would be used, POSed. The only branch that has remained quite, like, I would say, somewhat nationalistic and everything that. And when I've met them, they've always been like, pretty right-wing traditionalists. Has been the Paras. I've met several Paras, and they are straight up. If I was to guess, maybe some of them on the mild end of the, at the time would have been UKIP, but I would not surprise me if some of them were like BNP followers back in the day.
Yeah,
I've
definitely.
encountered this too, but I think the thing with Paras is that they actually don't seem to get a lot of respect amongst the different units now. And I
They
think
used to.
Yeah, they used to. It used to be a very prestigious unit, but nowadays it's kind of seen as like the place for sort of like essentially the gammons to sort of wash up in, and it kind of.
Adamant, could I point out to you Stuka Flieger, which is a German dive bomber pilot name? His comment that I put up here: most Marines are just meatheads. Don't agree with that for 1 second.
I agree with that.
I don't. They fight because they want to and they enjoy it. I've spent most of my life around them. The officers are different. Mate, I've had Royal Marine NCOs who were good friends of mine, and that's just not true, mate.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago though. That's like a different era.
All right, maybe, but they're not all like that at all.
They do like to fight, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And what's wrong with that? They're
Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
They're men.
But yeah, I was trying to explain to my nan the other day, right, why Weatherspoons works. And I said that, well, like, one of the funny things about Weatherspoons is it's kind of a maligned, in like sort of amongst the middle class, it's considered quite a maligned place to go.
Mhm.
The good thing about that, though, is it means it is just one demographic that frequents it, which is like white
Yeah.
working class people. So it kind of becomes, first off, a safe haven for them, but also it also almost becomes homogenous in its own right. I kind of find that the Paras are a little bit like this in terms of army units. They're like the army equivalent of Weatherspoons, you know.
Yeah.
You do realise, don't you? I know you do, that they've spent years trying to say if you're a nationalist, you could be far right to the army guys and the marine guys.
Yeah.
Like, whereas of course the very people you want to join the Paras and the army and the Royal Marines and the Royal Navy, etc., are the nationalist guys who wear their Union Jack swimmers at the beach. They're the very guys you want to join.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, they don't want them to join though, because they don't care if the fighting force is particularly effective. They just want it to be loyal.
Yeah, they just want it to be anti-British, basically. Aubrey in the chat says, my cousin was a Marine. Aubrey is an American, of course, and I know she had a US Marine recon guy, I think was her cousin, or a sniper, something like that. But yeah, totally agree. But anyway, but it's ridiculous. Because the very guys you want to join your armed forces are the guys who love your country, because they'll fight harder. They just will.
I always think back to that. There was a documentary about, I think it was last year, about the latest. It was HMS Queen Elizabeth, the most like recent aircraft carrier with no aircraft. There you go. And they were interviewing the crew, and it's like there was so many women. And when they asked them like, why are you going on, it says, oh, why did you join the Navy? Oh, I don't know. I just want to hang out with my girlies, and this is like one big cruise. And I was just
really
thinking, I was like, Jesus, if Iron Duke was, I remember thinking to myself, if Iron Duke was watching this, he would have like a heart attack or something.
Mate, my son has actually served on HMS Queen Elizabeth, the aircraft carrier, because he's a pilot. And I will tell you, like, when they're in the South China Sea with Chinese missiles landing around them, none of those girls are going to be any good. You know, they're just not.
Well, what was crazy was one of them like cried when she messed up. They were doing like a practice run of like battle stations, right? And she messed up, and she didn't really get shouted at. She just got like a telling off. And then she sort of broke down in tears and cried and went to like the hull of the ship and was like crying. And I was like, okay, like if I was on that, and what sort of did me in was that they have like a little shop, like a little shopping center on the ship, and I was
they'll have a naffy on the ship for sure.
Yeah. But it's almost like a little like Marks and Spencers, and I was like, okay,
it's a naffy, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I get that. It's just I'm like, does this ship? I know you need like the space, but does it need like this level of like bourgeois luxury? I'm not saying you shouldn't have something like that. I'm just saying, money wise, it doesn't need to have all those bells and whistles to go with it. That just seems like
all right. AI, all I would say is this: go watch. There's a really good film called The Yangtze Incident, and it's a little British frigate in 1948 or 49 that is trapped up the Yangtze by the Chinese communists, and they send the ship, and the ship gets like beaten up a bit by Chinese shore batteries, yeah. But they send a new skipper there who's a hard bastard. And he gets all the guys back to work. He gets all the gun turrets working. And in the middle of the night, he breaks out. And of course, the Chinese commies eventually spot the HMS Amethyst is breaking out. And they open fire, and the skipper just tells all his gun crews, open fire, because we are either going to break out or we're going to get sunk. And they have a naffy on that ship. Of course they do. Like every ship has a naffy. And there's one guy who's a radio operator, and he likes herrings in tomato sauce. And the naffy guy knows that's what he goes and buys there. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not silly luxuries,
Yeah, I know. I just, I was just watching it, and it just seemed like the whole atmosphere of the ship was. It's like it's not. None of it appeared like
with too many women on. It won't be.
Maybe the plan with the women is like the ancient Germans. So when the fighting starts, the women are there. They take their tops off and go, look, they're going to get us if you lose, men. So try a bit harder, men.
It won't work with missiles on ships, mate. It won't work with missiles on ships with ranges of hundreds of miles.
Well, listen, the type of woman on that ship, they're not
Mate,
easy.
I wouldn't.
They're not easy.
Let me be clear, I would not allow women to go to sea on warships. I'd just say no. All right, that would be my rule. There should only be men on warships, because the time is going to come, if you get in a war, where that warship's going to get hit by enemy fire, probably missiles these days. And if you can't plug the holes, you'll sink, and everyone will die. Whereas if you look as recently as 1982 in the Falklands War, Royal Navy sailors used to save each other from flooding compartments, and they would often save their ship by plugging the holes. Women are never going to do that.
Yeah, but Duke, our regime doesn't see any external threats. All the threats they perceive are all internal. So, for them, they don't really need a warship. They just need it to be staffed by women.
Jobs for women.
You're absolutely 100% correct, Armin. They don't care.
I mean, Britain does have external threats. Yeah. I mean, we do have external threats. They just, as you say, they don't really recognize them as such. They see, they see the rise of China as something that they can tolerate, or the rise of Russia and the East as something they can tolerate, even though they claim it's bad.
They want to make Britain the equivalent of the Chinese communist country.
Yeah.
That's why Labour won the British ID, digital ID, because
it won't be the same.
Enable them. It will be exactly the same, and
no, it will not. The Chinese system, it is predominantly about things like health markers and reproduction and stuff like that. That ours, if anything, would be weaponized for the complete opposite of those ends.
Well, yeah, but even the Chinese system, Adam, if your social credit goes down long enough, like it goes low enough, you're not allowed to get on a Chinese train. The British government will absolutely do that to British people like you and me if we say something they don't like.
Well, yeah, of course, any ID system is going to have that as the eventual end goal. I mean, there's no point to it if it doesn't have a sort of a weapon of enforcement. But the point is that
as many people have pointed out, Armin, and forgive me for interrupting you, but as many people have pointed out, one of the other things they will do is they will stop you withdrawing your own money from your own bank if
Mhm.
you do something wrong on social media or whatever. That is the whole point of the digital
Right, but the difference
ID.
is that what they perceive as doing or being wrong is different between China and the UK.
I think the UK will be worse under
Yeah, that's what I'm
somebody
saying.
under somebody like Gay Two-Tier Keir Starmer, for sure.
Like
did
the
see-
Chinese system is overt criticisms of the Chinese government, plus doing things that they consider like antisocial. Whereas our
Whereas
system
the
would be
but the
criticism of
Chinese, of
the
course,
UK
are a
current.
nationalist government who kind of like the Chinese, which is
Well, this is the point, Andrew, because like China and also like the Soviet Union, we talked about recently Soviet era films. You could get away in the Soviet Union, particularly in the sort of like even during Stalin, but a bit of post Stalin, you could produce films which are out there, which harken back to the past, which are quite, you know, as you said, nationalistic. But and it was fine. The society was fine with it. The only thing you couldn't do was criticize the state and the committee directly. You couldn't criticize the state and committee. Now,
AI.
now,
AI.
hold on. Sorry, can I just?
AI.
Sorry, no, hold on. No, please. What I was trying to say, what I'm trying to say though, is with Starmer,
yeah.
it's not even about criticizing the state. It is you're not on board with everything. So you could do something which has no relevance with the Labour Party or the British state, but if it's not in online with their worldview, with the establishment view, you will be cracked down upon, and will be expunged. That's where I view the difference between that.
AI. All I was going to say is during the communist Soviet era, when they made these nationalist films, yeah, did they fill them full of black guys? Because I don't think they did. But whereas we do today, we do.
Well, I mean, the sort of best example is the War and Peace, the 1966 and 67
I didn't see many
trilogy.
black guys in there. I didn't see
No,
many black guys in there.
no, and also there's bits which I mean, he had the more recent one where they actually removed church scenes from the recent Western ones, which was included in the Soviet era ones. There's even like way shrines that a lot of the characters are praying in the Orthodox manner, and as Mitch says in chat, this is a point where it was still normalized in the Soviet Union of anti-Christian anti-Christian figures like Khrushchev and people like that, and but you still had a sense of it was committed to the actual story. And the Soviets, and there was no, I mean, probably on an individual level, there were like hardcore Bolsheviks that had a problem with it.
But they were all Russian. They were all Russians in the film.
But they're all Russians, and the Russian, the Russian. At the end of the day, the Soviet didn't mind. In many ways, for them, it actually reinforced the narratives of the Great Patriotic War against Hitler and the Germans, because there was a lot of
100.
similarities.
But the point I'm trying to make here, AI, and I'm sorry I've interrupted you too much, is that if you watch the recent BBC production about William the Bastard, William the Conqueror, there were black soldiers on both sides, and it's just fucking ridiculous, and it's a lie. There weren't any.
Well, exactly. I mean,
And
exactly.
even the communist Soviets did not do that, but our government does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have to ask yourself which is more destructive. Is it liberalism or communism? In that regard,
I mean, the Chinese did have they did try and destroy all their history, and they sort of seem to have learned their lesson from that. And then current Chinese Communist Party is trying to more embrace their history, which is a much smarter decision.
Yeah, liberalism is worse Taro. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
I do think internally within the Chinese Communist Party that, and maybe if someone might know, I thought they pretty much have like somewhat publicly disavowed the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah,
They have disavowed it completely as like a mistake.
yeah. Because that was bad. Like a lot of their history was unfortunately destroyed with that.
I mean,
And
that's
these-
what happens when you have in revolutions. You do
And,
have that
yeah.
era where the radicals take over,
And of
and then they
course,
need to be
yeah.
removed. Yeah.
And of course, we're seeing that same thing with us, with that like destruction of our history. They're trying that so hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Battle of Hastings, black Anglo-Saxons, black Normans, just bullshit. There were none, like literally zero.
Yeah.
And this just, it makes me so angry. So you could argue that the fucking bastard liberal lefties at the Bias Brainwashing Corporation are actually worse than any communist.
Yeah, Duke. Talking of China, I don't know if you see that screen share. Like, I meant to talk about this last week.
Hang
but
on, I'll put it on, mate. Hang on. There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
so yeah, this is by Lau Kai Harry. So yeah, so it's all about the BNL stuff. You know, the British Hong Kongers we've imported. One of them, Chun Ching Kwong, which
Almost something Wong.
yeah, it's like on one hand,
one hung low. Yeah.
yeah, it's on one hand we're evil because we colonized Hong Kong, but then we're also evil because we refused to fight China over it back in the 90s.
Yeah,
Square that circle.
Course,
Yeah. But yeah, so for example, scroll down. Yeah, basically you have so you have this idea of like we brought in like 2 million Hong Kongers in the name of like geopolitically screwing over Beijing, and it was a matter of we screwed over Hong Kong by just unequivocally supporting other protesters, blah blah blah. I don't know what you'd make of this, Duke. So non-aligned foreign policy in regards to stuff like China. Basically, you know, for example, because you know George Osborne was signing up us to a lot of things with the Chinese, but then the last 5 years we started becoming a lot more anti-China, especially in the Boris onward. Although Boris tried to hike up our 5G after Huawei.
Today, Mitch, in Australia, you have Albanese, who is a gay Australian socialist premier, and he is absolutely pro-China. And in Victoria, the state I live in, the state government is absolutely pro-China. They go and do stuff with the Chinese Communist Party all the time. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, in the 90s, if I'd have been Margaret Thatcher, I would have put a British division in Hong Kong and said to the Chinese, all right, what do you want to do? You want to start World War III? But that would have just been me.
Yeah, so you have this takeoff. So, yeah, the future lay as much in Shanghai as in New York. And also, so Britain and America have fundamentally divergent interests. For example, you know, America will at some point go to war with China. I reckon that'll happen within 50
and
years.
If they do, Mitch, we all go to war with them too, for sure.
But actually, Lau Kai would argue it's our interest to slip out of it rather than fight with the American.
But we won't, Mitch. That's the point. We won't. And we won't for two reasons. Partly because of the alliance with the Americans and partly because of Australia and New Zealand. The chances of Britain not going to war with China when America does, and I say when because it's when, not if, that's going to happen. But what I don't understand is why somebody like Trump, who can presumably see this, is now falling back into this. Oh, okay, well, I still want to support the world's most corrupt nation in Ukraine, which I don't understand at all.
Well, yeah,
But-
I just see it as it's kind of like the situation with Ethiopia back in the 30s. Like we supported a country that literally still had slavery in 1936 against a power which we were trying to cozy up to against the Germans.
Yeah.
And had we
Yeah.
not irked off the Italians, we would be in a much better geopolitical position dealing with the Germans.
And British and Italian settlers got on great next to each other in Kenya and what have you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but like likewise, yeah, I just see it as. I mean, to some extent, I would argue there's a lot of paranoia on the Russian side. Like they have there is a great deal of suspicion towards the West.
You
Some
can
of it is
kind
real.
of understand it, Mitch, though, with
Yeah,
like
Bowser,
all the weapons we give Ukraine. You can kind of get it, you know.
Yeah, but it's also one of the things where it's kind of like, on one hand, we don't help ourselves because back in the 90s, you had a lot of Western advisors helping Yeltsin with his privatization. Now, Russians will over blame the West for it at times because on one hand, because I'd say, well, look, Yeltsin, he would have done it was just poorly planned from the get. It was just poorly done from the get go. Even if without Western advisors, it was always going to be crap, mainly because of one. So, you say, for example, Poland, they had what was called shock therapy. They were able to do it because they still had sectors of their economy that were held private under communism, whereas in Russia, they went 70 years without a private side of the economy.
Yeah.
So the Russians have to go all
huge corruption, for sure.
Yeah, and it's including Konstantin Kissin's father, Vadim, who
what a surprise! What a surprise!
Wait, what was he up to?
Nicky.
Oh, he was an oligarch.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was
was
working
he?
in he was working in a Russian version of it's not the treasury, but for Russia. He was working in that. He was like a mid-rank fella, and he was found embezzling money into his bank account.
I think
a lot of money.
If Konstantin Kristin's father went back to Russia, I think he'd like be in prison for the rest of his life.
Konstantin Kishin has used multiple times in the past, that his family had to flee Russia because of political disagreements and everything. It just turns out his family are just a bunch of common thieves. I mean, it's
big time thieves, but and his co-host is typical
gormless idiots.
It's
a gormless idiot.
Fat boy teacher lefty person.
Do you know what I don't even know what his name is, but like the sidekick, that he has with it, the
dim one,
I've never, I know a lot. I've seen a lot of gormless expressions in my time. He has like the most plebeian, peasant-like, gormless expression. Like I have like this deep aristocratic urge just to whip him from a horse, just to like whip him relentlessly in like a sadistic way.
But AI, do you reckon he could even be an English archer in 100 Years' War? Because I reckon the archers would have kicked him out. But
well, they were freemen. He'd be the gong farmer.
Oh, he would have been like the latrine boy or something like that, clearing out the latrines or something.
Yeah, as the gong farmers.
Yeah, regarding that, regarding Vadim Kissin, the Russians have a proverb about this. They say, "The Jew will tell you what happened to him, but he will never tell you why."
It seems to happen
actually,
a lot.
Much truth.
Yeah, 109 countries, 110 with Russia now.
Listen, I'm not even particularly anti-Jewish. I'm not a Zionist. I'm an anti-Zionist, but I'm not particularly anti-Jewish. And like, eventually, you have to see it, guys.
Yeah.
You just do.
That happened with me. Like I wasn't raised on it, but it's just I keep noticing things. It's getting tricky.
Yeah, eventually you have to see it. It's like,
I mean,
why are these
all the
people
copes.
not what they say they are? You know?
all the copes that you feed yourself start to like
Yeah.
burn out really quickly, and it's kind of like, oh dear, no, what have I become?
No,
I mean-
look, I was a little bit more switched on to this stuff because my dad went into the army in 1951, and he remembered when the Haganah Jewish terrorists like captured a couple of British sergeants and hung them. And he remembered when the Jewish terrorists blew up the King David Hotel, supposedly to kill British soldiers. But of course, there were loads of women and children in there. But he remembered that stuff. And then eventually, you know, I read about the USS Liberty, which nobody ever talks about. And you think to yourself, these are not our greatest allies, you know? They're just not. I'm sorry. It's like...
You've seen the new news because TikTok has just recently been bought by Israel, and apparently it's banning it's banning anyone who says that AIPAC has any influence on American politics.
I mean, that's half of TikTok at this point, to be honest.
Right.
Wow.
But it's
Wow,
like, so this
I thought
lobbying
TikTok
group
was Chinese, isn't it?
Yeah, but now Israel have bought it.
But didn't the American Supreme Court like say they can't operate there anymore? So Israel bought it after that.
I'm not sure. I think that sort of got overturned, maybe, or something. Or they figured I think they figured something out with that. But now Israel own it, and if he wants to be on there,
you know, Tharium, the other thing is, you know what? My granddad went across on D+3, and the people he was fighting against were Moustache Man's guys.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to hear about the Holocaust and all the rest of it? Yeah. Like, what did we have to do with that? Nothing whatsoever.
Because Netanyahu there was this video of him doing a talk about this that went around recently. Yeah, he's talking about how we now have TikTok, and this is all he's just talking about how they need to increase their influence on the West. And he's going, we've got TikTok now, and next we need to have a talk with our friend Elon Musk about all the stuff that's being said on X. Is this Elon's going to get an offer he can't refuse? Is this it? Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, obviously the Mossad informer guy who supposedly killed himself in prison, he absolutely managed to kill himself in prison. Sure he did.
I've got a backlog of short TikTok videos of bishops, Christian bishops from the 1st and 2nd century, and all I'm saying is, you know, Netanyahu better watch out because you think it's bad now, you know. I mean, those guys make like people like De Governor and Nick Fuentes look like freaking moderates at this point. But anyway, that's beside the point. I mean, it is funny though how you know, I hate to say it, but you know, Charlie. If you look at the Charlie Kirk and what's happened with that, it has given Turning Point USA and also Turning Point UK such a boost. And,
guys, forgive me for interrupting you, but there is a dude in our chat who's not going to be in our chat much longer saying the tasteful thickness. This is our land. And he's saying absolute boomer streaming. If you post one more thing, the tasteful thickness, this boomer will ban you. All right?
Who does he mean by our? He's not talking about us, is he?
I don't think he probably is either. No, oh, there you go.
We are the solar future.
Right. Yeah, okay. You're gone, mate. You are now history.
I think all these people. I think to be honest, I think all the all people commenting on these streams are just Indians or like MI5
Yeah.
agents at this
Yeah,
point.
honest.
I
Yeah.
They
I
are.
mean,
Or 76th Brigade AI.
Mhm.
You know, the shiny ass bastards who pretend to be soldiers who sit in front of
I mean,
computers.
maybe Aubrey's like the CIA handler. She's like the CIA. Uh, she's the CIA.
Yeah.
Nah,
We'd never
You know, like
suspect
she's
her.
too honest
Yeah.
for that. No, she's too honest for that.
Well, that's
I can
what they
tell
want
you.
you
I
to
know.
think.
No, I know Aubrey really well. Trust me, she's not.
I mean,
She's
okay,
she's a
listen,
bit of,
listen.
she's a little bit of a normie. She's a little bit of a normie and a MAGA person, but no, she's all right.
I mean, the CIA people, MI5 people in chat. Just okay. Listen to this. All right. We're not going to do anything that you want us to do. We're not going to do the thing that you want us to do, which you try and get mentally unwell people to do for the last several decades. It ain't going to happen on this show. So pack up, take your, your
Yeah, we
Manchurian
don't
candidate.
we don't say silly things on this show, mate. We just don't.
Yeah. So you're barking up
I
the wrong
like
tree, guys.
all my fellow streamers are pretty intelligent. I'm the only stupid one, so don't worry.
I don't know. Our hero, though, the hero of the far right in Britain, he was in Hitler Youth, though. Did you
Oh
hear this?
yeah, Nigel Farage. Apparently, according to that dimwit, Lammy was somehow involved with the Hitler Youth. Now, Nigel Farage is, I think, a year older than me, or a year younger. He was born in like the mid 1960s, and the Hitler Youth died in 1945, like at the same time Hitler did. How fucking Nigel Farage could have ever? And I'm not a great fan of Nigel Farage. All right, I detest Zia Youssef, for example, who's never going to vote for himself to leave, which he needs to. But Nigel Farage was born in the mid 1960s. How on earth, dimwit Lammy, could he have had anything to do with the Hitler Youth? I mean, I know Lammy's a black guy and he's dumb.
Well, it was based on a letter by one of Farage's school friends, wasn't it? Which is probably just some guy that became a massive shitlib as he got older. And
yeah, supposedly that letter.
If you wanted to do it, Armin, how do you do it when the Hitler
a bit late
died in 1945?
Al, what were you going to say?
I was going to say supposedly there was an interview. I think this was done. It was research done into Nigel Farage. I think in like the early 2000s, and there was this whole like article story about how a former teacher of his and people at school said that he was obsessed with Hitler, the Hitler Youth, and that he wanted, and he was, that he was supposedly very anti-Semitic as in school. That he wanted a whites-only policy for Britain. He wanted this is what this teacher that he actually was even trying to formulate like a deportation of the non-Anglo-Saxon races, and I'm like, Jesus, where's this Nigel Farage? I want this one back.
Well, he did have a little arc a few years ago where he got quite critical about Jewish power in finance. I think, I mean, I have spoken to someone that met him and did like ask him some pressing questions, and apparently he is like our guy, or at least he used to be on most things. I think he's a little bit of a coward, though. I think that's what kind of makes him go to the positions he does. But the thing is, we've all
Armin, he really could not have been involved with the Hitler Youth.
Yeah, I know. David Lammy's a moron. We all know that.
20 years before he was born.
Yeah, obviously. But the thing is we all know, like shitlibs like this, where you sort of you fall into the bad category, and then they will almost just kind of imagine a bunch of things about you that are just also things in the bad category.
Wow.
You know, like I don't know, like
Maybe.
I voted Remain, right? And I don't know how many times I've had to tell my normie friends that I voted Remain. Every time the conversation goes on to
I'll
politics, they
pretend
bring
I
up.
never heard that.
I voted Remain for based reasons. I'll have you know. And every time,
Indo-European reasons.
yeah, every time a political conversation comes up, they will bring up Brexit and they will talk as if it's a foregone conclusion that I voted Brexit because they've got this bad column, and it's like, you know, anyone who falls into the bad column on like one or two issues must fall into the bad column on all the other issues, and the bad column is just a bunch of stuff that
Adamant,
they
I've got to
sort
tell
of
you, mate,
believe.
in my life, there's only been 2 times I was really, really, really proud to be an English and a British. Only twice. Once was when we won the Falklands War, and the second time was the Brexit vote. That's the only 2 times I've ever been totally.
Yeah,
honestly
it's amazing
proud
that we now get like 1 million Somalians a year instead of 200,000 polls.
So during the
Do you
referendum,
think
when
it would have
Farage,
been different if we'd stayed in Armand? Because I don't. I think the plan was
No,
always
I
there.
actually don't think it would have. But my argument was always that that the immigration policy it exacted upon us is done by our own government, and that leaving the EU didn't really change anything to do with that.
when
it was
Farage,
just used as an excuse. And that vile scumbag, so-called Boris Johnson, he completely fucked up Brexit, and he did it on purpose, as did his party.
when Farage said, "We want less Poles and more Indians," was that what sealed it for you?
Basically. Well, the thing is, I mean, like funny enough, I mean, shitlibs who voted Remain for supposedly anti-racist reasons will now bring that up all the time, and they'll be like, "Oh, actually, Brexit was the pro-immigration stance." It's like, okay, so you're actually anti-immigration now. You're anti-Pajeets, are you? No, well, no. Okay, so this is
just bullshit.
But he did say that.
We live in a crazy world. We live in a crazy world where you can't just be pro-British. You're not allowed to be. You know, you can be pro-Israeli, but you can't be pro-British.
Even though my online persona was known as AI Shire Tory, the first party I actually ever voted for in the European election was the BNP.
Oh.
They were pretty popular in the European elections at once upon a time.
Yeah, and I was when I was in. I started uni, or I was think on my second year at uni at that time. I was absolutely vilified when I told one of my friends about it. He was not happy about that at all. Absolutely couldn't stand the idea. I mean, it was like, it's like, do you realise you're a fascist?
Yeah, people did they almost memory hold it to themselves. I mean, I actually know someone who I think actually watches this stream who voted or supported the BNP many years ago, and then almost like gaslit themselves into believing that they were totally against the BNP in the years afterwards. But I mean, I've got family. Yeah, and I've got family up in Yorkshire, and like if you'd gone to places like Bridlington, there were BNP stickers in like every window down some streets.
Well, I remember going through. Where was it? It was when we were coming back from holiday in Scotland, and it was near the Steam Museum. It's one of like the old like mill towns around there. Steam Museum. I can't remember which one it was, but maybe some chat would be able to jog my memory on that. But I remember seeing like in a lot of homes, a lot of like cars as well, like BNP placards and things like that for like local this was a time I think of local elections,
They were doing.
They're very
They
popular.
were doing quite well back then. They are.
And they took it for Dagenham as well. I mean, massive,
Yep.
massive presence in Dagenham.
Essex,
I mean,
man.
not
Essex, man.
yeah.
Anyway.
And Dagenham was blacked up after that by the guy who's
Yeah,
now,
that was the
what's his
that
name?
was the
Comms guy.
punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the punishment. I mean,
Mm.
nowadays Dagenham is like it's all like
Yeah,
biomass,
led
Bob Marley
by
and-
led by what was it, McSweeney, and you had that guy. Oh, who's that? Who's that sort of like B-list pop star that the Guardian always gets to write columns for them? Billy Bragg. Is that the one?
Billy Bragg. That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
fucking-
I mean, he's from
the,
Dagenham.
the ex-British soldier who's a total lefty cunt.
Yeah, well, he wrote a column actually not even that long ago where he was essentially kind of bragging about the essentially the blackening of Dagenham.
Great.
Where
Yeah.
he was saying that fascism was on the rise in Dagenham and we saw him off. It's like, okay, by we you mean like you and the replacement migration. that were
Guys,
brought
you
to ethnically
I'm not
cleanse that town.
suggesting that you'll all agree with me, but I suspect most of you will. I don't think nationalism and fascism are the same thing.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. No, and there is a. I mean, no, I would say, well, if you actually look at the actual, beyond all the political bullshit that people describe fascism, in reality, fascism is just a specific Italian movement. It was born
I mean,
to be from in the specific Italian movement.
Call Trump a fascist, and Trump's actually a 90s Democrat.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, not even that. He's a 5 minutes before Obama election Democrat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I'm no sort of neo-Nazi. I'm really not. But I am a British and English nationalist, and you know what? I don't want fascism. I want British nationalism. You know, the old empire nationalism that all my ancestors believed in and fought for. Britain for the British, basically. That's all I believe in. I don't want to kill anybody. I want to deport a load of people, but that's not killing them.
I mean, the problem is that if you look at the fascist and National Socialist movement back in the day, they weren't really that right wing. They weren't right wing enough in my view, in some regards.
Yeah, they were pretty left wing.
weren't.
Fascism is syndicalism, and syndicalism is one move up from socialism. That's what it is.
In chat, you got Evola's sunglasses. Now, of course, the real Julius Evola, who was who described himself as a super fascist, but basically like an aristocratical, thinker, Italian thinker, Sicilian figure. He would go to Germany under the National Socialist regime, and one of his critiques of National Socialism was that it was too populist, it wasn't aristocratical enough, it wasn't right wing enough. And there was some in there who agreed, and there was a lot that didn't, and a lot of the mainstream of the Nazi Party didn't agree with him, and a lot of the fascist. I mean, he fell out of favor with the fascist party in Italy as well, because they were quite they weren't as I said, right wing enough.
AI, look at the guy who wrote Storm of Steel, the German guy. Yep. The fascists loved it. Sorry, the National Socialists in Germany loved him, but he didn't love them because he was an old-fashioned guy who wanted the emperor back, basically.
Yeah. Adolf Galland was he was quite a traditionalist as well, in that sense, but he was he did talk with you had what it was called the German Party in West Germany, which was like a sort of like a that was like a proper neo-Nazi type party. Had a lot of the old figures and that, but he wasn't fully involved in it. He had friends with it, and he talked to everything. But the problem was that even with him, he wasn't a National Socialist because it wasn't right wing enough. It wasn't traditionalist enough for him. In that regard, there was
Of course, I will say that in the National Socialist defence, they not a phrase I thought I'd ever utter, but they of course didn't think it was viable to go back on a lot of those policies as much as they probably would have liked. You know, it's similar to how we've had this conversation on this stream now before. If you got rid of our existing monarchy because this royal family is, you know, a bit of a dead end, could you ever actually get monarchy back? And it's probably, you probably couldn't. It's a very hard thing once the genie's kind of out of the bottle on these things.
Well,
It's
you,
very hard to work back.
Adam, I'd be interested to see what all of you guys think. I'd kind of like a Plantagenet, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a Stuart still around.
Some of that Plantagenet fire would be good right now.
Yeah,
True,
and
true.
there are Plantagenets still around. I know that, I don't know, 25 years ago or something, the guy who was the pretender was actually an Australian cow station owner. So he owned thousands of acres in the outback. And he was the pretender. But that was, I don't know, probably 20, 25 years ago. But I would absolutely look at one of those guys for sure.
I did see Prince William did a interview the other day, and I don't know, he was saying a few things like how he wants to be different from his father, and he wants to make,
let's hope so.
Yeah, right. He wants to make, and he wants to, the thing that seemed most important to him in it was leaving a country that his son can be proud of, the legacy that his son can be proud of.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
Isn't that
I don't know.
Isn't that what we all want?
Yeah.
All of us?
Yeah, but I think he just means gayer and browner, though.
Oh,
deep down.
Maybe,
I mean, they've.
yeah.
I mean, he has. I mean, maybe as his kids are growing up, he's gotten a little more base. Usually, fatherhood does that to people, but I mean, he was really big on the whole.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Equality stuff during the BLM era, and that wasn't that long ago.
I did see. I see someone say they thought he might leave as king of the Commonwealth, which I think would be quite good, because that's like, you can see this problem with Charles is where he thinks like every African and whatever in the Commonwealth is just as equal as all of us, like his actual subjects in England.
I mean, actually, if you look at National Socialist Germany, go back to just draw comparisons for a sec. In National Socialist Germany, it was about pan-Germanism, it was pan-Germanic unity, whether it be the Germans in the Czech lands or Austria or what have you. Now, for us, like a pan-Anglo-British sort of philosophy. It's Canada, yeah. It's Britain, it's Canada, New Zealand, Australia.
Yep.
And bits of South Africa, it has to be said. But yeah,
a wee bit of the Cape, yeah, sure.
Yeah, bits of South Africa. There's quite a lot of white South Africans who are actually English speakers, mate. I've got to tell you, I did live there for a long time, but yeah. And some of them are crappy liberals, but not all of them by any means.
Yeah, so that would be like the sort of British version, if we could say it would just be like.
But then we would really be called fascists. They just say, "Yeah, you total fascists," because we'd be denying the first peoples of Canada and the Aboriginals of Australia.
So then I'd say
who managed to produce huts in there.
I would just say in response, well, there's nothing wrong with fascism, nothing wrong at all, and I'm stepping over any First Nations concerns.
Well, I'm really not a fascist. I'm not even joking. I'm just not, because they're too socialist for me.
Yeah.
But they are. There's a Mussolini was a communist and then became a socialist and then became a fascist. And if you look into fascist history, they were syndicalists, which is like some sort of weird mashup of capitalism and the unions, really. And then National Socialism in Germany, which was a different thing, although, of course, none of the leftists see this, was again like National Socialism. It was kind of like international socialism, but nationalist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not too keen on the worship of the state.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
I one of the things I liked, A.J.P. Taylor, who was an absolutely socialist labor historian, even he said that a sensible British man who didn't break the law much could go his whole life and have nothing to do with the state prior to 1914. You could literally live your whole life in Britain.
Yeah, you could literally order a gun.
Yeah, if you weren't a criminal and you weren't stupid, you'd have nothing whatsoever to do with the government in your whole life, except pay a little bit of income tax and go to the post office, and that'd be about it.
Yeah, and it's like back then you could order a gun and you could just pick it up at the post office, and you didn't have to worry about the government screening you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Get your Maxim gun, not just a gun. You get your Maxim gun, as every Englishman should have.
I can't remember.
Sat in the doorway of your house to machine gun the enemy. But
I can't remember. There was a discussion. I remember I saw online and on like a stream or something, and it got me thinking too. It was I remember it was a book I was reading that on the during the time of like particularly the height of Pax Britannica and the height of the Empire. If you were living in Britain at the time, and let's just say you were going about your daily life, a lot of the time you wouldn't even know unless you visited maybe like London or a major city, and you saw the wealth and the splendor and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of the time you wouldn't even notice there wasn't any like visible sign or presence that Britain was an empire, if that makes sense. So
you'd get the odd regiment of soldiers marching through your county, or you might see a Royal Navy warship off the coast.
Yeah, but if you're living in the Dales, Derbyshire Dales, or somewhere like that, somewhere out of the way from the world, you wouldn't notice. And I mean, and also I think there's. When you look at the type of people who ran the empire, whether it be like those in the Hudson Bay Company or the East India Company, everything, there wasn't really that much direct oversight by British governments that people would think. It wasn't like it was a. I mean, I don't think actually the average politician.
They had a lot of independence. The local colonial governors had a lot of independence. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, the only oversight they would have would probably be with peers in the House of Lords. So these would be like the proper aristocracy, because these were life peerages, right? So the peers within the House of Lords, who maybe own shares in like the company, various companies.
They would get the odd message from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, but that would be about it. Anyway.
Yeah, wasn't it like I remember when I was doing our series on Richard Hilton. He sort of said how it was that Clive of India he was told, listen, you can't seize, like this Indian province. We haven't got enough administrators, and he just did it anyway and just totally ignored Whitehall.
Well, bear in mind that William Clive went out to India as a clerk. He wasn't even a military guy. He was a clerk, which was a bit higher than you would think that today. It meant he was a guy who was part of the administration, but he wasn't even a military guy. And he just decided he would do what he would do. He was a great man, of course. But and of course he created India. if you were one of these Pajeets who goes on about India, well, India was a total British creation. It didn't exist before the British.
Yeah, I mean, Warren Hastings probably does a lot more. I don't know if this is true, but because I don't know too much about it. Apparently, so Hindi as a language, like it only really became a form, like the standard form it is, basically because of the British Raj making it that way. Because basically, you had all these
The
dialects.
whole of India, Mitch, was a British creation. It just didn't exist.
Yeah, like Hindi. Yeah, it's like
1757. It was
but yeah, that's my point.
created by
Yeah, that's the
Britain.
point. Yeah, that's the point. I'm trying to say. I think even I've heard even the language itself is a British creation in a sense because we had to standardize it because you had so many dialects and so many different accents that basically, someone in Punjab could not understand anyone from Bengal, for example, and so we had to bring in standardized languages. It's like, for example, we were able to know, like, I think like Warren Hastings, he was also the main guy who made it formalized that to be an administrator in India, you had to do stuff like study Sanskrit and some of these Indian languages.
Well, I mean, and at the same time, of course, the British got rid of the thuggies, who were they were partly religious and partly criminal, who used to kill thousands and thousands of Indian travelers on Indian roads. British got rid of that. Terrible British. We also stopped sati, which was the practice where if you were married to an Indian guy and the Indian guy died, and of course the Indians were not monogamous, so they had a load of wives and stuff, you'd get chucked on the bonfire of your husband, even if you were a 25-year-old girl. And the British stopped that. We were just evil. I mean,
worst of all was we banned the trannies.
Yes. Yeah, we
Very
did
bad.
work. We did work against that.
Terrible.
But the Brits did so much bad stuff in India.
I don't know. I don't really think we should be celebrating this stuff though. Like, it's something when people talk about how we should be proud about getting rid of the slave trade, and I kind of sit there and think, well, I mean,
yeah, I do. But do you know what, Adam? And this is one area where I disagree with you, in that we're superior to these people, and that's why we did it.
I think we would have marked our superior better if we'd just stuck to our guns and stayed keeping all of these practices purely in British interest.
No, you see, I don't agree with that, Adam. And I think that we were just superior people who were not vile. Even the ancient Romans did some stuff like this, and they stuck to their guns pretty much. I'm not against sticking to your guns, but I think our guns were better than their guns, if you see what I mean. Like, we were not bad people, we were good people.
Yeah, but I don't think we were bad people even when we were doing slavery either. So
no, nor do I, because everyone else did. But we got rid of it before everybody else, and that was a good thing.
I mean, even if no one else did do it, I'd still think we were better.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get any gratitude for it, so I don't really care either one.
No, we don't. Yeah. Absolutely, and I'm sure that's where Alman is coming from.
Well, yeah, I mean, the same framing that celebrates the ending of the slave trade also celebrates the mass growing of the African population through aid and healthcare, which is absolutely not something we should be celebrating.
No.
I don't. But you know what? Like I said, I think we are much superior people.
The extent, I suppose,
breeds without the law.
I'd say we could. One thing is this, like the Kipling poem, the introduction to this stream. Like, what do we think of the white man's burden? Because I think it's generally
kind of every advance in the world that there's ever been is us.
But like the idea of we tried to sort of come and teach all the savages how to be civilized, and I think it was a noble attempt, but it clearly failed miserably, and we should just give up on it. Any idea of it?
No. I'm not against the new British Empire. You know, if things
Yeah,
change
sure,
enough.
but like I'd be happy with another empire, but this empire 2.0 should just be resource extraction. We're not trying to fix.
sure.
We're not going to try and fix you anymore. Teach you how to do things that failed.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I still don't want to do bad things to women and kids, and we never did.
I mean,
Like
my
almost uniquely, the British Empire
Yeah.
was the kindest
Very
and
soft.
nicest
Very
empire
soft, yeah.
that ever was.
I mean, even though I jokingly, I said about Mars, for example, colonizing Mars. I mean, just think about it a bit like Australia, right? You know, you put a bunch of white British people on an island. Like, you put a bunch of white British people on the planet for 200 years. You're just going to have like a fairly decent,
A decent
fairly decent
society.
dominion. Yeah,
It'll work
society.
well. Yeah.
100. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Another thing I'd say about white man's burden, I mean, you look at America, right? I mean, you look up what demographics vote Democrat among the whites. It's like Swedish Americans, for example, heavily vote Democrat compared to the Anglos. So basically, if you're descended from, English settlers, especially old stock heritage, basically, you are trying to keep civilization afloat. Meanwhile, the lots of Swedish Americans, for example, in Minnesota, or the blacks, or the Hispanics, will vote against your interests. So it's kind of like it's more like the Anglo's burden.
Yeah. I responded to that. I said, typical that the Anglo is the only person trying to maintain civilization. Everyone else is working against him.
If you look at Canada, for example,
even in the USA, if the Americans had been, I don't know, French or German, right? There wouldn't be any Americans. They'd all be dead. They'd all be dead. It's only because they were Anglos that some like fag end of them survived. Same thing in Australia with the Aboriginals. Like if the British had been German or French, there'd be no Aboriginals. They'd all be gone.
I don't see how that proves that superiority, because I mean, look at the Aboriginal state, right? Australians had to live with them for hundreds of years, and they're no more civilized than they were 200 years ago.
Yeah, but Mitch, I'm not trying to say that makes us better. I'm trying to say that makes us kinder. That's all.
I mean, we don't have to kill them.
Not better, kinder.
We don't have to kill them, but I just think, trying to educate them, teach them is just a.
It's a dead end. It is, all right. But
I mean,
you know what? I'd sooner be better people, and I think we are better people.
I mean, without and this might sound like a bit of a U-turn on my point, but one of the problems, like, okay, Duke, take Australia and take America. You have your First Nations, whether it be like the Aboriginals or the Native Americans.
Fake Canadian term, by the way. They weren't nations; they were tribes. But
exactly. But that sort of set. What they do is they use Christian morality as a way to browbeat. And a lot of it is coded Quakerism. It's coded in a lot of the Protestant movements, and that is a problem. And I will say that the problem with mainstream Christianity today is that there is a morality aspect of it which does attack the European identity, and that is a problem. I will admit, and people like Survivor Jive and a lot of the neo-pagans, when they criticize it, they are right to criticize, because that is a problem.
Yeah,
that is undeniable.
I totally agree, mate. I've gone from atheist to agnostic, and that's probably as far as I'm going to go. But I totally agree. I think you're right. They use our religion against us.
Yeah, and they, even though, I mean, there's such a minority in both countries, both in Australia and the United States, that they're aware that they can use in what Bowden would describe as vanguardistic terms with other groups to get what they want, to basically get what they want out of the society they live in. So in the Aborigines in Australia, for example, they I mean, I know like the obvious things. Oh yeah, well they have handouts, which is true. They do get ridiculous handouts and
Yes,
and
they
everything.
get ridiculous handouts. Yes, they do.
It's ridiculous handouts, and you have all and these things. But the problem is now you've actually got to the point where you have white Australians, not even the most leftist ones, who bend over backward. And there's this one guy. He's like this, like half Lebanese, old Lebanese chap who's a politician. What's his name? He's meant to be like Mr. Based in Australia. What's his? He has like a cowboy
Carter.
hat.
Bob Catter.
Yeah,
Bob
Catter.
Carter, yeah, that's who you're
Bob
talking
Catter.
about, yeah.
And he's Mr. Based in Australia. But then I saw a clip of him saying, "Oh, we should be a proper independent republic. Like we have no connection." He's like, "We're not European. Britain's a European country." And it's like,
Okay.
oh, okay, yeah, okay, you fucking Lebanese wanker. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
You get it. But and so you have like even that mentality that that they use against these societies. It even seeps in to supposedly the sort of right wing in those countries as well. And it is a problem. It is a
100.
problem.
I'm going to totally agree with you, but I'm going to use this as a segue, which is a flash media term to talk about something else. I'm going to use it as a segue because what are they called? The guys who you go to, Adam, and sometimes what are they? Skinlings?
Oh, Skildings.
Yeah, they're doing an Australian thing in Sydney in October, towards the end of the month. And there's going to be
is it
guys.
Shieldings?
Yeah, Shieldings. Thank you. But yeah, they're doing their first Australian thing. I think on the 25th, 26th of October, something like that, in Sydney. I'm not going to go because to go to Sydney for me is like a 12-hour drive each way, and I'm just not going to go. I'm sorry, it's too expensive as well. But yeah, if you're in Australia, and particularly if you're in New South Wales, I would strongly suggest go to that because there's going to be some good people there. If they do one in Melbourne, I will absolutely go myself. But Australia is like the size of the United States, basically, minus Alaska. So, Sydney is a very long way from Melbourne. And I don't like flying. Like I said, it's a 12-hour drive each way and very expensive when you get there. So I'm not going to go to that. But if you are an Aussie person on the right, I would suggest you go check that out. That'd be good. Sorry, AI. You carry on. That was my segue.
Oh, right. Yeah, so I mean, what I was saying was, I mean, looking. I mean, I have thought of like, let's just say we were like Britain was genocide, and we did sort of get rid of the Aborigines and everything like right back along, and it didn't exist
But
anymore.
we never did, of course.
But let's just say we did. Okay, just hypothetical here. They were got rid of.
So if we were like the
ago.
Germans in Southwest Africa, is what you mean?
Yeah, sure. Or we just sort of like sold, got rid of them, and they were gone, and no presence left. Obviously, you wouldn't. You would have the benefit of not having to deal with their, basically their presence and the mythology around the
AI,
they're hard done by.
Could I just point one thing out, right? The vast majority of the, in air quotes, Aboriginals who go on about stuff in Australia today, right? They're not the relatively few fairly pure Aboriginals who live in
Yeah,
Northern
they're mixed
Territory and
race.
Far North Queensland.
They're mixed race.
Most of them, if you saw them in the street, you'd think
Are quite
they
white.
were a white guy. Yeah,
Yeah, they're quite white.
They're 15% Aboriginal, most of them. You know,
Yeah,
they're the guys who cause us problems, not the fairly full Aboriginals. Who a few of them they do live in like Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory and in Cape York in Far North Queensland. Those guys don't do this stuff. It's mostly fairly white guys who are just traders, I guess. I don't know how you describe it.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a perennial problem, and this goes. I mean, a lot of this goes to the heart of like in post World War II, like the post-colonial studies fields and the Marxist interpretation of colonialism that derives from that. So I mean, this has always been this is something that you have all over the place, and you know, as I say, I think a lot of it does draw from Christian morality that that the attacks come from. Unfortunately, Australia, the governments and in Australia and in Canada and in New Zealand bend over backwards for those minorities, particularly New Zealand and Canada. I mean, in Canada
and Australia, mate, and Australia,
and Australia.
Aboriginals get so much free stuff. You've got no idea, mate. When I lived on Thursday Island, right, and the people on Thursday Island, they're not Aboriginals, they're Torres Strait Islanders, who are like a Melanesian people, and they're actually more clever than most Aboriginals, I would say. But you could, if you were a Torres Strait Islander, you could get your skipper's ticket to like run a merchant ship or a fishing trawler or whatever for no money whatsoever. You couldn't do that if you're white Australian, but if you're an Aboriginal, yep, absolutely. Torres Strait Islander, go for it, mate. All free. You didn't have to pay. You wanted to be a nurse, go for it. No fee whatsoever, mate. But that's always been the way in British places, and as you say, AI, the people use like Christianity and British kind-heartedness against us constantly, all the time.
Well, they use the good nature of the society, you know, and for me, that's one thing I've always thought is the worst. You know, you can have grievance, and I understand why groups will use grievance to as a political end, but when you use it, you know, I mean, at the heart of it, and this like obviously stating the obvious, is you can. I find it very weak. I find it very feminine. I find it incredibly I cannot respect anyone who uses this, and it's why I'm very critical of Irish more than I should be. Maybe I'm too harsh on the Irish,
not harsh enough.
There are good Irish people, Alman.
Maybe I'm too harsh on the Irish, but also when I see it among those Scots and everything, I mean, there's element of left wing wankers in Scotland that play into this, and also the Welsh, but mainly there's a lot of the Scots as well.
And the English. AI. There's left wing wankers in England, you know. Sadly.
What I mean is like those proclaiming their victimhood. I mean, at the altar of the empire. I mean, the left wingers in England will just say, "Well, we need to acknowledge our privilege within the empire, and
our guilt for
our guilt
conquering a quarter of the world. We're bad people."
And then it's like I see on my timeline like some stupid left wing boomer Scot who goes, well, we've always been oppressed by the English, and the Empire was the greatest oppression vehicle that was used against Scots, and it's just like
Funny how the Scots were vastly overrepresented in running the empire, but yeah, okay, fair enough.
But it's always, but now it's like it's really funny because those people are always, particularly in Scotland and Ireland, are always like those, and like I imagine who were like 70 plus, and I'm just waiting for the day like that I want to write a Substack article on this. I just want to call it the most grotesque and cursed generation, and just like when that last generation dies off, we're going to all throw a party because, quite frankly, I just cannot stand them. They are literally the worst people ever to exist in human
But
history.
but AI, you do realise that I'll be dead when that happens. So I won't join you. I'll cry in heaven. Actually, I won't. I'll cry in hell because I've always been going downstairs being a soldier. But anyway,
you're not over. You're not over 70, are you? You're not.
No, but I am 60. So
Okay, well, I'm not. I'm talking about people who were like teenagers in the 60s. Like that sort of that sort of.
Well, that was a cursed era. I mean, apart from the miniskirts, I was in favour of the miniskirts, but otherwise, it was a cursed era.
But I mean, that's one of my biggest pet peeves I have when I have to, when you see those sorts of people, and I'm as time has gone on, the more people that like portray themselves as victims. I know this sounds like a bit of a basic bitch sort of centre right sort of thing, but I do not. I do not respect people who portray themselves as victims. Even if they are have genuine concerns of being victims, if to go along that line is just it's weak, and they do it from a point of strength as well, which is perverse. It's just so perverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird how the Scots as well that do that. They're so quick to bring up the Opium Wars, which just, to me is just the oddest example. Yeah, I've seen them bring up the Opium War specifically so many times, and you look and you're like how many of those places were called McFadden and Sons?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's just that sort of left wing that in some ways they accuse many on the right, and there are many right who are quite low IQ, but that sort of like 60s there is a strain of like boomer 1960s low IQ leftism that goes around that isn't really talked about much, or as much I should say.
Sorry, guys. What did I miss?
Nothing much. Nothing much.
Aubrey is telling me I'm not going to hell. I don't know about that, but anyway, we'll see. I think I've probably killed too many people.
I mean, to go into that thing earlier about sort of Christian wetness, though, I never really like the whole thing where people bring up turn the other cheek, because I kind of think people misunderstand it, and the implication wasn't that you should just let people abuse you. The implication was that if they're backhanding you because it specifically says slap you across your right cheek, in that culture at that time, it was because it was like Jewish. It's something you do to degrade people. It's something you do to someone lesser than you. And the idea of turning the cheek is that you're turning it into a fist fight, which is like a duel almost.
Yeah, I mean the trouble is all of it. I hate to say, the Quakers. I mean, I honestly believe, if I had a time machine, I'd be like in Parliament there saying, listen, the Quaker movement, when it was in its foundational period, I would say, listen, you have to round them up and burn them all publicly. You're going to have to just kill them all because, quite frankly, we cannot allow them. You just can't. I'm begging you, from stranger from the future, you cannot allow them to form. They are a cancer. They will ruin this country. Stop them now in their
The
tracks,
Quakers
please.
are a uniquely terrible group. I think because Shane Gillis brought this up on a podcast recently, a particularly famous anti-slavery Quaker. So it's doing the rounds. People are constantly bringing this guy up. I can't remember his name. Even though that guy was like a colossal failure, I think his movement has amounted to him shooting a black man in the back and then getting hanged. So I can't remember his name for the love of me, but
it was him and his sons. They tried to free. I know who he. It was like Jebediah something or other, and he tried to free his. He tried to free like a group of slaves with his sons, and yeah, it was as you said, it's total failure. His sons and him ended up getting failing, and he ended up. I think he ended up like John Brown. That was it, John Brown.
Yeah, check out John Brown. Like he was a lovely guy who was willing to kill umpteen Americans to kill some to free.
Yeah, he was just a complete. Well, as someone already said, a nut job. You know, he was.
He was a nutcase. Adam, can I just say to people, Mitch, who is one of the mainstays of this stream, has decided he has to go to bed because we have gone quite long today. And Mitch joined at my stupid time earlier than when we were supposed to start. So thank you, Mitch. Sorry. But yeah, John Brown was an insane bastard, basically, and didn't give a shit, really, about human beings. He just had this thing he was going to go and do, you know.
Leftists have the John Brown Gun Club. It's like the armed Antifa lot.
Yeah.
They'll go the same way.
I mean, I live not too far from a Quaker hall, and one of the and hold on. No, hold on, guys. Calm it down. I'm not doing anything. All right.
Don't shake too much, Aeon. Don't shake.
Yeah. No. Hold on. Calm down.
You don't want to be a shaker. They're even worse than the Quakers.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. And there's they have like these printed out stock photos, I guess. I don't know if they're stock photos or they're people that who part of the Quaker thing, but if you have like interracial couple, so black man, white girl, white wife, or whatever, lesbian couple, and all that sort of stuff. And of course, you can imagine they're very much pro refugee. Now, I honestly think, and let's just say that. Hang
on, AI. We must stop using this word refugee because it's fake. They're economic migrants.
Or pro-alien replacement.
Economic migrants. They're not refugees. No one who gets on a little dinghy or a small boat and crosses from France to Britain is in any way, shape or form a refugee because France is a safe country, even according to that fucking shit shower that's called the United Nations.
Yeah, also
I would love to see Britain leave, by the way.
You know, having been a refugee is an inherently human thing, and they're brown, so you know.
Yeah, they're economic migrants, basically. That's all they are.
I mean, if you look back also the Quaker movement, they were the first ones where the women in the movement would strip off naked in like the height of the Victorian period to demonstrate against some social issue or other, and in Parliament they would strip off naked and all that sort of stuff. I honestly believe that Quakerism is a mental illness. I also believe it should just be banned. In AI government-run administration, or I might even lobby this with Rupert Lowe. Actually, come to think of it, as I'm a member, let's just ban Quakerism. I'm
a member of that. AI, have you ever watched the old Glory Club when they were doing the streams on Albion Seed, the book about the early settlement of America by the Brits?
Yeah, I've been recently reading Albion Seed actually, and
Right, and
yeah.
then you would have seen that I think it was the Quakers, but it was certainly one of these non-conformist people who used to allow a woman and a bloke who were going to get married. They were allowed to go to bed together before they got married.
Yeah, that is the Quakers. I mean, literally,
I
the
thought it
Quakers
was.
are.
I thought it was.
Yeah, no, literally, the Quakers are, quite frankly, the most. Okay. Cast your mind back to medieval Inquisition. You know, the evil Catholic Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition, all that. The reason you have fucking Inquisitions is because every Catholic hierarch, Pope, Bishop, all the way down, they would knew that if you allow doctrinal, you know, factionalism, you would have groups like the Quakers pulling stunts like this. This is why they were so hard and tough on heresy, for example. It wasn't irrational.
God knows how they fought the Indians. Because like Quakers are like non-violent. So
I
what did they do?
I
Did they
have
just get scalped or what?
I have a theory that the Quaker leadership would rely on a lot of Presbyterians from Ulster to do a lot of the
Ah,
heavy lifting for them.
that would
From
make
my
sense.
understand,
So they had soldiers, in other words. Yeah,
yeah,
all right.
basically they outsourced it because they couldn't get their hands dirty. From when I was reading, there was a book I got on the Appalachians and everything, particularly like the Westwood and stuff. A lot of the heavy lifting was done by Ulster Scots and people who have Presbyterian descent, and
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, those guys would have been good soldiers. I mean, that's exactly where you get what the Americans call the Scots Irish, who are actually mostly Northern Irish Ulster people originally. That's where you get those guys, and they settle them on the frontier with the Indians because they'll fucking fight them and push them back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I mean, yeah, as a whole, I mean, I think the most like, and also they were very instrumental in like trying to subvert aspects of the empire as well, the British Empire. I mean, quite honestly, they are if you want to talk the true villains of the last couple of centuries, apart from other groups. I mean, the Quakers are up there, like they are up there. They are literally up
Oh,
there as like.
look, I am the first person to admit that if you look at England and Britain, we have our fair share of traitors, and we always have.
I had
You know,
I had a teacher at school, and she was a Quaker, and she always wore a white poppy. I literally, she was the most insufferable. She was such an insufferable cunt. I cannot describe how awful she was as a person as well. It is just it draws in the genetically like the genetically like corrupted into this. It's
yep.
absolutely vile.
Yeah, no, I do. Look, AI, I'm totally in agreement. We've always had our fair share of traitors, unfortunately. And of course, they've become much more common since World War II. I mean, I have many criticisms of the British government in World War II, but I don't criticize the fighting guys because the fighting guys, they were fighting for Britain and the Empire. They weren't anti-fascists or anything of that nature at all. In fact, all of them really, well, 95% of them at least, would be described as far right today by someone like Tutikere.
Mm.
You know, all the guys who went across on D-Day, the Battle of Britain fighter pilots, the Royal Navy guys fighting the Battle of the Atlantic, all of those people would be described as far right today because they were all they were probably British supremacists. They were certainly British nationalists. and most of them would be regarded as racist because sensible people are racist. They just are.
Yeah. Duge in chat just said everyone's getting a drubbing tonight. Lol. I mean, yeah. Wait, let's okay. Let's punch up some Sikhs. Let's move to the Sikhs now.
Oh yeah. Tommy Robinson's favourites, and of course Tommy is funded by Zionists from rebel media, etc. I think most people know the Ozraeli, Ari Yemeni. I'm not sure how you can be an Ozraeli myself. I think you're either an Aussie or an Israeli. I don't think you can be both. But
Sikhism isn't even real, though. It's not a real religion. It's not even a real thing. It's just a weird blend combination because the people on the frontier of the Hindu and Islamic world couldn't decide. It's a religion of indecisiveness in reality.
Well, I've always said the Sikhs were kind of like Puritan Hindus. That's what I would describe them as.
I mean, yeah, they actually, it's strange. They have like the Hindu aspect because Hinduism is sort of like a pagan.
Well,
it's a pagan religion.
They are really Hindus, AI, but they're like Puritan Hindus.
But they have like the monolithic aspect of it that the Abrahamic religions have as well.
Yeah,
so it's kind
but they're not British, so I don't support them any more than I support any other foreign group.
No, they come. I mean, their homeland is in the Punjab. At the end of the day,
to be honest, I can't stand any of those sort of like model minority groups.
Fuck them all, basically.
Go
home,
including the Gurkhas. But
no, different, totally different.
Yeah, they served admittedly, but
I'm never. They serve the British Crown. It's different, all right.
Isn't that Narinder Kaur cow? Isn't she Sikh?
No probably.
Yeah.
Could well be.
Yeah. Listen, everyone's getting. Let's move on to the Welsh before we sign off. Let's do. Come on, let's do it. We can do it. Those fuckers with those sing-song accents. Let's fucking sheep shagging twats. Come on, let's get them.
No, I've known many good Welshmen. I have to say, I have. Like, I've had good friends who were Welsh, and also my mother was half Welsh anyway, so I'm not going to agree with that one. But are you guys? I don't even let you guys go too overboard on the Irish because I'm almost a quarter Irish. So
we should do. We should do. We've got reason to.
Plenty of good Irishmen, mate. Plenty of good Irish.
I know. It's just
guys who won the Victoria Cross. Connaught Rangers, one of the greatest regiments of the British Army, but
No, listen.
Kipling's Devil's Own.
Yeah, listen. I
think one of the things we have to do, AI, is like Britain is small enough as it is. I really think we have to embrace Scotsmen, Welshmen, and Northern Irishmen. And if Southern Irishmen want to be loyal, I'll embrace them too. Because we're too small as it is. We have to be as big as we can. Right? And I know, and I've met many, many really great Scots, Welsh, and Irish guys. And Northern Irish guys, Ulstermen. Lady Shlott was a wonderful Irish lady from Ulster, Northern Irish lady. But she had friends on both sides of the border, as she said herself. Do you know what? I'll reject a fucking so-called English traitor like Starmer far more than I would a Scotsman or a Welshman or an Ulster guy who was pro-British.
I was talking to this libertarian guy the other day, yesterday actually, and about how violence is the supreme authority, and he was on the opinion that, oh no, I can just make alliances and agreements and stuff, just dancing around the facts. And one of the things he said was, is the interaction between Wales and England only characterized by violence? Yes, it is.
Bollocks. Absolute bollocks.
Well, no,
my message to him, and you can probably send it back. It's like, okay, at one point, the Welsh people, before they even were called the Welsh people, they're called the Romano-British people, had the whole of
Yeah.
what's modern England and Wales, and then they were
Exactly.
restricted to modern Wales, Cornwall, and parts of Cumbria. So that argument is totally. I mean, I'm sorry. Imagine being a libertarian in 2025. Like, what sort of retard?
I know,
Absolute.
right?
I mean, I'm sorry. There are spastics with more common sense than that guy. I mean, it's fucking hell.
Yeah, I mean, he said like sheathing your sword is more powerful. No, it's not, because the guy with the sword,
No.
the other guy with his sword, is just going to stab you. But yeah,
just kill you,
fucking
mate.
lol cows.
Yeah.
Look,
Idiot.
I'll tell you guys, my dad was born in 1933, so he was like 7 when World War II broke out, and he was a Londoner. And first of all, he was sent to Brighton as an evacuee, because they evacuated loads of the little kids from London because they thought the Germans were going to bomb the place. So first of all, he went to Brighton, and he had a nice time there because the eldest daughter of that place, her boyfriend was a Royal Navy sailor, and they used to take him to the beach. And like one time, big wave hit my little dad, and the sailor pulled him out, laughing at him because the wave had gone over him, and my dad had a great time there. Then they sent him to Bracknell in Berkshire, and the lady there was doing it. Well, I say the lady, the woman there was doing it to make money, and because they got a certain allowance for taking evacuees, and she only fed him dumplings, and my dad got rickets from that place. And then after that, he was sent to North Wales. And in North Wales, he had a great time. Like, they made him go to chapel on a Sunday, and of course he couldn't understand it because they were talking Welsh. Because North Wales in those days was full on Welsh. But the farm labourer there was a First World War soldier, and he used to take my dad around on his shoulders and show him all sorts of stuff. And my dad ended up helping with the harvest, and they had like big Shire horses and stuff doing that. And my dad had a fabulous time in Wales, in North Wales, and everyone was kind to him. And he used to get rabbit stew because you could go shoot rabbits even with rationing. So I love all British people. If you're British, I think you're great. I don't care if you're English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish. And like I say, even the occasional Southern Irish loyalist, I welcome you, right?
But you can only say that because we're all closely related, though.
Yeah, we are. We're all very, very closely related. North West Europeans, all of us.
When my great uncle passed away quite a few years ago, people were quite surprised to find out that him and my granddad weren't actually related by blood. And what it was his who he came to call his brother was simply put out with his family during the Blitz.
Cool.
And they ended up staying there for a very long time. He was he stayed out there for almost the entire duration of the war and then some. And that they just referred to each other as brothers, and they just carried on sort of staying in close contact with one another for the rest of their lives. And it didn't seem to bother them that they weren't actually like blood related because they just shared an entire childhood.
Kind of like an unofficial adoption sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's quite funny, adoptions, particularly in the ancient world, in Rome, was very common, particularly among the aristocracy. And
no one thought anything of it.
No,
Yeah.
it's totally normal. I do apologise to everyone. I am a bit drunk, so I probably
No, you're fine, AI. You're
I no,
nowhere near as AI compared to what I've been on streams in the past. You are absolutely fine, mate. Don't worry.
I listen. When I get drunk, I do like to bash the Welsh a bit, and it's just my
Well,
it's
you're
my
in the
West.
south. You're in the
Yeah.
southwest, AI.
Yeah, it's just inbuilt programming, default setting. Yeah,
I have to say I like Wales. I remember years and years and years and years ago, like I don't know, must have been early 90s, I think. I had an Austin Allegro, which was a shit car, gotta tell you, and I killed it driving. I'm trying to think where I went now. I drove to somewhere in the West Country. Oh yeah, I went to John Chard's grave, which is in a little Somerset village in a church.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've been. Yes, it's. I think it's outside Taunton somewhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it almost always has flowers on it. By the way, people still go and put flowers on it, which I think is nice.
There's a blue plaque. There's a blue plaque at the school there now. To John Chard.
Yeah, cool. And the church was owned by his brother. Sorry, the vicar of the church was his brother.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the vicar of that church. It's a little village, and I can't remember what it's called now. But the vicar was his brother, because that's what happened to middle class blokes. They either went into the church, the army, or the navy, basically. But anyway, so yeah, I went there, and then I drove up north a bit and went to Brecon to go and visit the South Wales Borderers Museum, where they have all the stuff from Rorke's Drift. And on the way back, I killed my car because I was driving it too quick. I used to speed, I've got to say. But, whatever. Never hit anyone, by the way. But anyway, yeah. So, I'm fond of Wales. And Brecon is beautiful. It's a lovely place. And the other thing I liked about it was they have, I don't know if it's still there, but they used to have a statue to Picton, like Wellington's general who got killed at Waterloo.
Yeah, still there.
And everyone hates him these days because apparently he had a estate in Jamaica that had slaves or some bollocks.
Yeah, I mean, I read that was a bit more complicated than they were making out. But the funny thing is that he was largely falling into irrelevance, and then bringing him up and doing the thing in the Cardiff Museum where they put his portrait in the crate on the floor, as an art exhibit in of itself, has actually done a lot to sort of like bring him back almost in the public conscious.
He was actually one of Wellington's better generals who Wellington actually trusted, and Wellington didn't trust many of his generals, but Picton he knew would always fight.
Yeah.
John Robertson says the Welsh did well at Rorke's Drift. I've got to tell you, John Robertson, all right? I have a good friend on this channel I hope will be back next week called Aaron Hook. And he's a actual descendant of Henry Hook, DC, from Rorke's Drift. There were not many Welshmen at Rorke's Drift. That was because Stanley Baker, who put up the money for Zulu, the film, which is a great film, by the way. It's probably my favorite film. But the Welsh bit in that is very much exaggerated. But anyway, there you go. Not to say that there were not many good, brave Welsh soldiers, because there were. And there were even one or two at Rorke's Drift, but there were probably more Londoners at Rorke's Drift than there were Welsh. And there were a lot of guys from Birmingham, for example. But yeah, the great movie, by the way. Probably my favorite film in many respects. I've even been to the place where they filmed it, which is up in the Drakensberg. And I knew a South African dude who got all the Zulus wear these necklaces that are supposed to be lion claws, and of course they're not really, because you can't kill that many lions these days. But they had to get these Zulu ladies to go and wash them in mud so they weren't so white. But yeah. Anyway, I'll tell you another good story. When I lived in South Africa, and I lived in Northern Natal, and the real Rorke's, not where the movie was filmed, but the actual place, was about 30 minutes motorcycle ride from where I lived. And where I lived in Northern Natal was big coal mining area. And because this was like 1985 and later, there were loads of both Welsh and Northern English miners there who'd moved there because the pits were closing in Britain. And one of the oddest pair of guys I knew was this total Afrikaner dude and this Welsh guy, and they were totally inseparable. Like, you'd never see them. They were both married, but you would never see them unless they were together, either with or without their wives. And eventually I asked the Welsh dude, I said, how come you guys are such big mates? And he said, that's a long story. But eventually another one of my mates told me what had happened. This Welsh dude was a braai, which is what the South Africans call a barbecue, on the weekend. And the Afrikaner guy had a little daughter of like 2, and she fell into the swimming pool, and no one noticed because everyone was partying. And the Welsh guy spotted her and pulled her out. And when he was a miner, they had taught him to do CPR, and he brought her back to life. And that's why these two guys, the Afrikaner and the Welsh guy, were totally inseparable, because he'd saved his daughter's life, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. But anyway, There we go. Guys, we've been going 3 hours and 25 minutes, which is way longer than we generally go these days. So I'm just going to go around the panel and ask if there's anything you want to plug or any final thoughts you have. Tarium, anything you want to plug, mate? Or any final thoughts?
Can find me on Twitter. And I look forward to being Keir Starmer's enemy. That has declared us all that he's at war with us, the English people.
Yep, me too. I'm his enemy. Totally.
Yep.
Totally agree. Outman, anything you'd like to plug or any final thoughts?
No, basically the same. Bring it on.
Yep, 100. I think we're all Keir Starmer's enemy, frankly, because we're all enemies of traitors, basically, and Keir Starmer is a traitor. AI, would you like to plug your channel, sir, and any final thoughts?
No, just that check out AI Shire Homeland, and also the Pendragon Foundation, which is the castle restorations project.
Oh yeah, that's what's his name's project?
Nathan Hurd.
Nathan Hood is a really good bloke, guys. Go and check him out on YouTube and on X on Twitter. And yeah, the Pendragon Foundation. It wants to restore British castles. It's a really good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, do check that out.
All right, guys. And also do check out AI. Do check out Mitch on X, Twitter. He's Anglo Gropnik. He has a good, interesting X Twitter account. Thank you very much to my guests, Tarium, Alban, AI, and Mitch. And we will see you on Wednesday. And guys, this is going to be a good stream. We're going to do a Trafalgar Day stream on Wednesday, which is as British as you can possibly get. one of Britain's great heroes, Admiral Lord Nelson, and the Battle of Trafalgar, which gave Britain domination of the world's oceans for over 100 years. So come and join us on Wednesday. Once again, thank you to all my guests. Go well. I don't have a closing tune for us this evening, but if you like good music, go and check out Patriotic Archive has some good music. So, all right, guys, check you on Wednesday for that Trafalgar Day stream. Go well.
Yeah, night all.
Good night, all.
All right.